The champagne fountain sparkled like liquid diamonds under the crystal chandeliers, and Vivian Cross knew she didn't belong here anymore. Her hand trembled as she stood at the edge of the marble foyer, the same foyer where she'd taken her first steps in this mansion 16 years ago, a terrified 11-year-old clutching a donated teddy bear. Now, at 27, she was an intruder in the only home she'd ever known. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive deep into Vivian's world, a story of rejection, revenge, and a love that refuses to die. Tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing our global family come together. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button right now because trust me, you do not want to miss how this story unfolds. This one's got twists that'll leave you speechless. Now, back to the nightmare Vivian just walked into. She'd only come to return the files, confidential documents she'd recovered from her old office after the restructuring that stole her career. She thought she'd slip them through the mail slot and disappear. Simple. Final. But the universe, it seemed, had a crueler script in mind. Through the towering French doors, she could see them. Her adoptive sister, Giselle Cross, radiant in an ivory cocktail dress that probably cost more than Vivian's entire wardrobe, laughing as she showed off an engagement ring the size of a quail egg. Around her, 100 guests in designer suits and couture gowns clinked glasses, their voices a symphony of wealth and status. An engagement party. Of course. Vivian's stomach twisted. She should leave. She should run. But her feet wouldn't move, because across the crowd, she saw Evelyn Cross, her adoptive mother, notice her through the glass. Their eyes met. Evelyn's expression shifted from surprise to something far worse, disgust. Then Evelyn smiled, a cold, surgical smile, and began walking toward the doors. Vivian's pulse hammered. The envelope of documents felt like a brick in her hands. She had seconds to decide, flee like a coward, or face the woman who'd thrown her out on the street 3 days ago with nothing but a suitcase and the words, "You're an embarrassment to this family." The door opened. Well, Evelyn's voice dripped with venom disguised as silk. Look who's come crawling back. The conversation in the grand hall began to dim. Heads turned. Whispers spread like poison through the crowd. Vivian lifted her chin. I'm not here to stay. I just came to return these. She held out the envelope. Evelyn didn't take it. Instead, she raised her voice, projecting it across the room with practiced elegance. Everyone please, a moment of your attention. It seems we have an unexpected guest. Vivian's blood turned to ice. Giselle appeared at her mother's side, eyes glittering with malice. Viv! Oh my God, what are you wearing? Her gaze raked over Vivian's simple jeans and sweater, the warmest clothes she owned now that autumn had turned bitter. Did you come here to beg? Because honestly, that's just sad. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not loud. Not overt. But enough to sting like 1,000 tiny cuts. I'm not begging, Vivian said quietly, her voice steady despite the humiliation burning through her veins. I'm returning property. Then I'm gone. Dominic Cross, her adoptive father, a man whose approval she'd chased for 16 years and never caught, stepped forward, his face a mask of cold authority. You were told not to come back. This is a private event. I didn't know. You never know, do you? Evelyn interrupted, her voice sharpening. You didn't know you'd lose your job. You didn't know you'd become a liability. And now you don't know when you're not wanted. The words hit like a slap. Someone in the crowd snickered. Vivian's hands clenched around the envelope. 16 years. 16 years of trying to earn their love, their pride, their basic decency. And this was what it came to, public humiliation at her sister's engagement party. Giselle stepped closer, her perfume cloyingly sweet. Honestly, Viv, it's kind of pathetic. You really thought you were one of us? You were a charity case. A tax write-off. And now that you're useless. She shrugged, the gesture devastatingly casual. Well, let's be real. What man would ever want you? You're broke, jobless, and, let's face it, completely forgettable. The room fell silent. Vivian felt the weight of 100 judging eyes. Her throat tightened. She would not cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Right? She whispered. Forgettable. She turned to leave, her vision blurring. And that's when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in this world of polite cruelty and champagne bubbles. A deep, thunderous roar, an engine that didn't purr, but growled. The kind of sound that turned heads and stopped hearts. Every person in that room froze. The chandeliers seemed to tremble. Even Evelyn's perfectly composed mask cracked for half a second as she glanced toward the front of the estate. Through the tall windows, Vivian saw it. Headlights. Bright. Aggressive. Approaching fast. And then, it appeared. A Lamborghini Veneno, midnight black with veins of electric blue, rolled up the circular driveway like a panther stalking prey. The scissor doors lifted slowly, dramatically, like the wings of some avenging angel. The entire party surged toward the windows. "Oh my God, who is that?" someone whispered. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit tailored so perfectly it looked like it had been stitched onto his body by artisans who understood power. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes. Oh God. His eyes locked onto Vivian through the crowd. Adrian Montana. The billionaire tech magnate. The man whose heart she'd walked away from 2 years ago because she'd been too broken, too afraid to believe someone like him could love someone like her. And he was walking straight toward the mansion. Toward her. Vivian's breath caught. No, this wasn't happening. The front doors opened, Dominic's butler moved aside instinctively, as if recognizing royalty, and Adrian stepped into the foyer. Silence blanketed the room like snow. He didn't look at Evelyn. Didn't acknowledge Dominic or Giselle or the 100 stunned guests. His gaze found Vivian. Only Vivian. And when he spoke, his voice was low, controlled, but it carried the weight of a thunderclap. "Who told you she's alone?" Vivian's world tilted on its axis. Adrian Montana stood in the foyer of the Cross Mansion like he owned it. No, like he was deciding whether it was worth owning. His presence filled the space in a way that made the crystal chandeliers seem dim, the marble floors ordinary, the wealthy guests suddenly small. 2 years. It had been 2 years since she'd last seen him, 2 years since she'd walked away from the most extraordinary thing that had ever happened to her, and here he was, appearing like some avenging prince from a fairy tale she'd convinced herself she didn't deserve. Her heart slammed against her ribs. This isn't real. This can't be real. But the way every eye in the room had turned to him, the way Giselle's mouth had fallen open in shock, the way even Dominic Cross, a man who bowed to no one, had straightened his spine in recognition. It was very, very real. Adrian's gaze never left Vivian's face. "I asked a question," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly across the stunned silence. "Who told you she's alone?" Evelyn recovered first, her social training kicking in like armor. She smoothed her designer dress and produced a hostess smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Montana. What an unexpected surprise. I wasn't aware you knew our—" She hesitated just long enough to make it sting. "Former Ward." "Former Ward," Adrian repeated, the words cold as winter steel. He finally tore his eyes from Vivian to look at Evelyn, and something in his expression made the elegant woman take an involuntary step back. "Is that what you call someone you raised for 16 years? "Well, technically," Dominic began. "I wasn't asking you." Adrian's interruption was surgical. "And I didn't come here to have a conversation with people who throw away what they never deserved in the first place." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Vivian's head spun. She couldn't process this. Adrian wasn't just here, he was defending her. Publicly. In front of the very people who'd spent 16 years making her feel like she owed them her existence. "Adrian," she whispered, finding her voice. "What are you doing here?" He turned back to her, and the hardness in his face softened into something that made her chest ache. "What I should have done 2 years ago." He started walking toward her, his expensive shoes clicking against the marble with measured precision. "Come and find you before you convince yourself you weren't worth finding." Oh God. Memories crashed over her like a wave. 2 years ago. She'd been 25, working as a junior analyst at Meridian Tech, a company Adrian had acquired in one of his legendary business moves. He'd visited the office for a routine inspection, and she'd been assigned to present the quarterly data report. She'd been terrified. Adrian Montana was a myth made flesh, a 32-year-old billionaire who'd built his empire from a dorm room startup, whose name appeared on Forbes covers and TED Talk stages, who moved through the world like gravity bent around him. But then she'd started talking about the data, and he'd listened. Really listened. Asked questions that showed he understood not just the numbers, but the human patterns beneath them. After the presentation, he'd asked her to dinner. She'd said no. He'd smiled, that devastating smile that probably melted glaciers, and asked again the next day. She'd said no again. By the third day, she'd said yes. And for 6 months, Vivian had lived in a dream. Adrian was brilliant, yes, but he was also kind, funny, passionate about changing the world through technology and making it accessible to people who'd been left behind. People like her. He'd met the Crosses once, at a charity gala. She'd watched Evelyn and Dominic fawn over him, seen the calculation in their eyes as they tried to figure out how to use Vivian's connection to Adrian for their own benefit. That night, she'd realized the truth. She was still just a tool to them. And worse, she was becoming a tool that could trap Adrian in her mess of a family, her damaged past, her fundamental brokenness. So she'd ended it. Told him she didn't love him. Told him it had been fun but she wanted to focus on her career. Told him every lie she could think of to make him let her go. He'd looked at her with those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through every defense she'd built, and he'd said, "If you need space, take it. But don't think for a second I believe you." Then he'd walked away. And she'd spent 2 years convincing herself it was the right choice. Vivian. Adrian's voice pulled her back to the present. He was standing right in front of her now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker, something that made her remember what it felt like to be held by him. "You need to leave," she said quietly, desperately. "You don't want to be part of this." "Part of what?" "Your life." His jaw tightened. "I've been part of your life since the moment you walked into that conference room and told me my acquisition strategy was statistically sound but ethically questionable. You think 2 years of silence changes that?" Behind him, Vivian could see Giselle whispering furiously to her fiancé, a bland, forgettable man whose main qualification seemed to be generational wealth. Evelyn and Dominic were having a silent conversation with their eyes, the kind of wordless communication that came from decades of social manipulation. They were regrouping, planning, and Vivian knew exactly what came next. They'd try to use this. Try to sink their claws into Adrian the same way they'd sunk them into every opportunity she'd ever had. "Adrian, please," she whispered. "They'll destroy you." He laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. "Vivian, I've fought off hostile takeovers from corporations with more money than some countries. I've stared down senators, CEOs, and at least one very angry sheik. Your adoptive parents are," he glanced over his shoulder at Evelyn and Dominic, "adorable in their ambition, but they're not even close to my weight class." "Mr. Montana," Evelyn glided forward, her voice honey-sweet. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Vivian is always welcome here. We simply thought." "Don't." Adrian's single word cut like a blade. "I was in my car outside your gates 3 days ago. I watched you throw her belongings onto the driveway. I heard what you said to her." The blood drained from Evelyn's face. Vivian's stomach dropped. "You were there?" Adrian's expression flickered with something painful. "I've had people keeping an eye on you since the day you left me. Did you really think I'd just forget you? That I'd move on and marry some socialite and live happily ever after without the only woman who ever looked at me and saw a person instead of a bank account?" The room was so silent Vivian could hear her own heartbeat. "You been watching me?" She didn't know whether to feel protected or violated. "Making sure you were safe," he corrected. "There's a difference. And when I found out you'd lost your job, a job you lost because of budget cuts that were actually retaliation for rejecting your supervisor's advances, by the way, I started paying closer attention." Vivian's blood ran cold. "How did you?" "I have resources. I use them for people I care about." His voice softened. "I was going to come to you quietly. Give you time. But then I saw what they did to you, and I realized you were never going to come back to me on your own. You were going to keep punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Tears burned behind Vivian's eyes. She would not cry. Not here. Not now. Giselle's voice cut through the moment like nails on glass. This is so touching, really, but can we get back to my engagement party? Vivian, you've made your point. You've got a rich boyfriend. Congratulations. Now can you both leave? Adrian turned slowly to face Giselle, and Vivian saw something dangerous flash across his face. I'm sorry, I don't think we've been properly introduced. You must be the sister who borrowed Vivian's college application essay and got into Stanford while Vivian went to community college. Giselle's face went white. Adrian, Vivian started. Or wait, he continued, his tone conversational but lethal, maybe you're the sister who convinced your parents that Vivian's trust fund. Yes, Vivian, you had one. Your biological parents left you money, should be reallocated to family investments that somehow only benefited everyone but you. The room erupted in whispers. Dominic stepped forward, his face purple with rage. Now see here, you can't just come into my home and... Your home. Adrian's laugh was ice. Funny you should mention that. I've been looking at real estate lately. Historical properties. Mansions with, let's say, questionable financing. You'd be surprised what public records reveal when you know where to look. The color drained from Dominic's face. What was Adrian talking about? Vivian looked between him and her adoptive father, confusion spiraling through her shock. Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. With a few taps, he turned the screen toward the crowd. This is a wire transfer from the Vivian Cross Memorial Trust, established by her late parents, into Cross Industries operating accounts. Dated 2015. Would you like to see the other 12 transfers? Evelyn actually swayed on her feet. You stole from me? Vivian's voice came out broken. It was family money, Evelyn said quickly, desperately. We were investing it for you. You were embezzling, Adrian corrected. And if you'd like to avoid federal charges, I suggest you start being very, very cooperative. If you're loving this drama, drop a comment telling me what you think Adrian should do next. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. This story is about to get wild. The power had shifted entirely. The guests were no longer watching an engagement party, they were watching an execution. And Vivian stood at the center of it all, her entire world rewriting itself in real time. Adrian turned back to her, his expression gentle despite the chaos he'd just unleashed. I didn't come here for revenge, Vivian. I came here for you. He held out his hand. But what happens next is your choice. It's always been your choice. She stared at his outstretched hand. Behind him, the family that had used her, lied to her, stolen from her. Before her, the man she'd loved and left because she thought she wasn't enough. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the fear and shame and self-doubt, a voice whispered, what if you were always enough? What if they were just too broken to see it? Vivian's hand trembled as she reached out. And that's when the door burst open and someone shouted, Police! Nobody move! The crystalline world of the Cross Mansion shattered like glass. 3 uniformed officers pushed through the doorway, followed by a woman in a sharp gray suit who moved with the controlled authority of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Her badge glinted under the chandelier light. Detective Sarah Cora, Financial Crimes Division. Vivian's heart stopped. The guests scattered like startled birds, pressing themselves against the walls, champagne glasses forgotten. Giselle let out a small shriek. Dominic's face transformed from purple rage to ashen terror in the space of a heartbeat. But Adrian didn't even flinch. He just squeezed Vivian's hand gently and whispered, Trust me. Detective Cora's gaze swept the room with professional efficiency before landing on Dominic and Evelyn Cross. Mr. and Mrs. Cross, I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and misappropriation of trust funds. She nodded to her officers. Read them their rights. The room exploded. Guests pulled out phones, recording everything. Giselle rushed to her father's side, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. This is insane. You can't just, Daddy, tell them this is a mistake. But Dominic wasn't speaking. He was staring at Adrian with pure, undiluted hatred. You did this, Evelyn hissed as an officer approached her with handcuffs. You vindictive bastard. No, Adrian said calmly. You did this. 16 years ago, when you took in a traumatized child and saw an opportunity instead of a daughter. I just made sure you'd finally pay for it. Vivian felt like she was drowning. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Adrian, she breathed, pulling her hand from his. What did you do? He turned to face her fully, and for the first time since he'd arrived, she saw uncertainty flicker across his features. What I had to. What you would never do for yourself. You had them arrested. I had criminals arrested, he corrected. There's a difference. Vivian, they stole over $2 million from you. Money your biological parents left to ensure you'd be taken care of. Money that was supposed to pay for your education, your future, your life. The Crosses used it to fund their failing business and their lifestyle while making you feel like you owed them everything. The number hit her like a physical blow. $2 million. She'd gone to community college because they'd said they couldn't afford a university. She'd worked 3 part-time jobs while Giselle vacationed in the Maldives. She'd eaten ramen in her dorm room while they'd renovated the mansion's west wing. All while her own money, her parents' money, funded their lies. Detective Cora approached them, her expression neutral but not unkind. Miss Cross, or should I say Ms. Ward? Ward, Vivian said automatically. Her birth name. The name she'd barely remembered until this moment. Ms. Ward, I'm going to need you to come to the station to make a formal statement. Mr. Montana's attorneys have provided substantial documentation, but we'll need your testimony too. Wait. Vivian's mind was racing. I never gave Adrian permission to access my records. I never asked him to investigate. No, Adrian said quietly. You didn't. Because you've spent your entire life believing you don't deserve justice. That you should be grateful for scraps. His voice roughened. But I couldn't watch it anymore, Vivian. I couldn't watch them destroy you and do nothing. Across the room, officers were handcuffing Evelyn. Her adoptive mother, the woman who'd taught her to set a table, who'd corrected her grammar, who'd hugged her exactly twice in 16 years, was being arrested. Because of Adrian. Because of her. You should have told me, Vivian whispered. You should have asked. Would you have said yes? Adrian's eyes burned into hers. Would you have let me help you? Or would you have done what you always do, suffered in silence and convinced yourself you deserved it? The words cut deep because they were true. This isn't help, she said, her voice breaking. This is control. This is you sweeping in like some white knight and making decisions about my life without me. Then make a decision now. Adrian stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Right now, Vivian. Decide. Do you want justice, or do you want to keep protecting people who never protected you? The entire room was watching. Phones were still recording. Giselle was sobbing. Dominic was being led away in handcuffs, and Evelyn was screaming about lawyers and lawsuits and defamation. And Vivian stood at the center of it all, being asked to choose. Detective Cora cleared her throat. Ms. Ward, I understand this is overwhelming. But I need to know, will you cooperate with this investigation? Vivian looked at Adrian. Really looked at him. He'd kept tabs on her for 2 years. He'd investigated her family. He'd brought the police to her sister's engagement party and blown up her entire world. And he'd done it because he loved her. The realization hit her with stunning clarity. This wasn't control. This was what love looked like when you'd been drowning for so long you'd forgotten people could throw you a rope. She started. And then Giselle was there, grabbing Vivian's arm with desperate strength. Please, her sister sobbed. Please, Viv, you can't let them do this. Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them Mom and Dad were going to give you the money, that it was always yours, that this is just a misunderstanding. Let go of her. Adrian's voice could have frozen fire. But Giselle clung harder. We're family, Viv. We're family. You can't destroy us like this. Think about what people will say. Think about the scandal. You mean the scandal where your parents stole from an orphan? Adrian's tone was lethal. That scandal? Vivian gently but firmly removed Giselle's hand from her arm. She looked at her sister, her beautiful, spoiled, cruel sister who'd borrowed her clothes and her essays and her dignity, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not anger. Not even hatred. Just emptiness. "We were never family," Vivian said softly. "I was just convenient." Giselle's face crumpled. Vivian turned to Detective Cora. "I'll cooperate. Fully. Whatever you need." The detective nodded, respect flickering in her eyes. "Thank you. We'll need you to come to the station, but you're not under arrest. You're the victim here." Victim. The word should have felt weak. Shameful. Instead, it felt like permission. Permission to stop pretending. Permission to stop protecting people who'd never protected her. Permission to finally be angry about what had been done to her. "I'll drive her," Adrian said. "No." Vivian's voice was steady. "I'll go with the detective. I need to do this part myself." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "But I'll be right behind you." "And Vivian." He caught her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture so tender it made her ache. "I'm sorry I didn't ask first. I'm sorry I made this choice for you. But I'm not sorry for making sure they can't hurt you anymore." She looked up at him, this man who'd torn through her defenses like they were paper, who'd loved her when she couldn't love herself, who'd just upended her entire world on a Thursday evening. "We're going to have a very long conversation about boundaries," she said. His lips quirked. "I'm looking forward to it." Detective Cora gestured toward the door. "Ms. Ward?" Vivian took a breath and followed her, walking past the officers, past the whispering guests, past the ruins of the only family she'd ever known. As she reached the threshold, she heard Adrian call out behind her, "Vivian!" She turned. He stood in the middle of the Cross Mansion's grand foyer, surrounded by chaos, his dark eyes locked on hers. "This isn't over," he said. "We're not over. Not by a long shot." Heat flooded through her. Something electric and dangerous. "I know," she whispered. And then she walked out into the night. The police cruiser's leather seat was cold against Vivian's legs as Detective Cora started the engine. Through the window, she could see Adrian standing on the mansion steps, watching her leave. Behind him, officers were escorting Dominic and Evelyn to separate vehicles. Giselle had collapsed onto the marble stairs, her engagement party in ruins around her. And Vivian felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. She felt light. Like something heavy she'd been carrying for 16 years had finally been cut loose. "You okay?" Detective Cora asked, her voice gentler than before. "I don't know," Vivian admitted. "Ask me in a few hours." The detective smiled. "Fair enough. For what it's worth, Montana's been working with our department for 3 months on this case. He was thorough, professional, and he made it very clear that nothing moved forward without enough evidence to guarantee a conviction." She glanced at Vivian. "He protected you, even from himself." 3 months. Adrian had been building this case for 3 months. How long had he known? How much had he discovered? And what else was he hiding? Drop a comment if you think Vivian can trust Adrian, or if he's hiding something darker. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to be here for what comes next. The station was 40 minutes away. Detective Cora asked preliminary questions. Dates, names, memories of conversations about money. Vivian answered mechanically, her mind still spinning. When they finally pulled into the precinct parking lot, Vivian saw a familiar midnight black Lamborghini already waiting. Adrian leaned against the hood, still in his perfect suit, his phone to his ear. When he saw the cruiser, he ended the call and straightened. Detective Cora chuckled. "He beat us here. Impressive." "He's persistent," Vivian murmured. "He's in love," the detective corrected. "There's a difference." They parked, and Vivian climbed out. Adrian was there immediately, not touching her but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "The interrogation room is ready," he said to Detective Cora. Then, to Vivian, "I have 3 attorneys on standby. You don't have to say anything without legal representation." "I'm the victim, remember?" Vivian said. "Not the suspect. Doesn't matter. I'm not taking chances with you." With you. Like she was something precious. Something worth protecting. Vivian had spent so long believing she wasn't. Detective Cora led them inside, through fluorescent-lit hallways that smelled of bad coffee and bureaucracy. They reached a small room with a table, chairs, and a recording device. "I'll give you a moment," Cora said, closing the door behind her. Alone with Adrian for the first time since the mansion, Vivian felt the weight of everything crash down on her. "You've been investigating them for 3 months," she said. "Yes. You had me followed. Protected. But yes. You knew about the trust fund. The embezzlement. Everything. Yes. And you didn't tell me." Adrian's composure finally cracked. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and pain warring across his face. "What would you have done, Vivian? If I'd come to you 2 months ago and said, 'Hey, the family you've been trying to please your entire life is stealing from you?' Would you have believed me? Or would you have defended them and shut me out completely?" She wanted to argue. Wanted to say she would have listened. But he was right. She would have defended them. Made excuses. Convinced herself there was some explanation. "You still should have told me," she whispered. "I know." He stepped closer. "And I'm sorry. But Vivian, I've watched you set yourself on fire to keep them warm for 2 years. I watched you shrink yourself to fit their definition of acceptable. And when they threw you out like garbage," his voice turned ragged, "I couldn't just stand by anymore. So you became my hero without asking if I wanted saving." "No." His eyes burned. "I became the person who makes sure the people who hurt you face consequences. There's a difference." The air between them crackled with tension. "Why now?" Vivian asked. "Why tonight?" Adrian's expression turned dangerous. "Because I found out about Giselle's engagement party this morning. And I knew they'd find a way to make you feel small at it. So I decided, if they were going to humiliate you one more time, they were going to do it right before I burned their world down. That's dramatic. I'm a dramatic person when it comes to you. Despite everything, the chaos, the arrests, the revelations, Vivian felt a smile tug at her lips. I'd forgotten that about you. I hadn't forgotten anything about you." He moved closer still, until they were barely a breath apart. "Not the way you bite your lip when you're thinking. Not the way you take your coffee with too much sugar and no cream. Not the way you look at me like I'm simultaneously the best and worst thing that ever happened to you." Her heart hammered. "Adrian, I'm not asking you to forgive me right now," he said quietly. "I'm not even asking you to trust me. I'm just asking you to let me stand beside you while you take back everything they stole. Your money. Your dignity. Your life." His hand came up, hovering near her cheek but not touching. "And then, when this is over, I'm going to ask you something else. Something important." "What?" she breathed. His smile was slow, devastating. "You'll find out. But first, justice." The door opened. Detective Cora stepped in with a file folder. "Ready to begin?" Vivian looked at Adrian one more time, then nodded. "Ready." She sat down. And for the next 3 hours, Vivian Ward told the truth about the last 16 years of her life. Every lie. Every manipulation. Every stolen dollar and broken promise. And with every word, she felt the chains of the Cross family fall away. 3 days later, Vivian's face was on every news channel in the city. She stared at the television in Adrian's penthouse, because she had nowhere else to go, and he'd insisted, and she'd been too exhausted to argue, watching a brunette news anchor with perfect teeth dissect her life with surgical precision. The Ward Trust Fund scandal has rocked Seattle's elite social circles. Dominic and Evelyn Cross, prominent philanthropists and business owners, are currently being held on $500,000 bail each, charged with embezzlement and fraud against their own adoptive daughter. Vivian's stomach churned. She reached for the remote, but Adrian's hand covered hers. "Don't," he said quietly. He sat beside her on the leather sofa, close but not touching, respecting the fragile boundaries she'd drawn since that night at the mansion. "Hiding from it won't make it disappear. Watching it won't make it hurt less. No. But it might make you angry. And anger is better than shame." She looked at him, really looked at him. He'd changed from his suit into dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that made him look less like a billionaire and more like a dangerously attractive man who'd taken over her entire world in the span of 72 hours. His penthouse was absurd. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. A kitchen she'd watched him actually cook in last night, making pasta from scratch while explaining the aerodynamics of his Lamborghini collection. He'd given her the master suite. Insisted on it. He'd taken the guest room, and every night she lay awake knowing he was just down the hall, knowing that 2 years ago she would have crossed that distance without hesitation. But 2 years ago, she hadn't known he was capable of orchestrating the arrest of her family without telling her. Family. The word felt strange now. Poisoned. On the television, the anchor continued. Sources close to the investigation say Montana Tech CEO Adrian Montana was instrumental in bringing the case to light, raising questions about his relationship with Ms. Ward and whether this is a case of justice or revenge. Vultures, Adrian muttered. He grabbed the remote and switched off the TV. They can't fathom someone doing the right thing without an ulterior motive. Is that what you were doing? Vivian asked quietly. The right thing? His jaw tightened. We've had this conversation. No, you've explained your reasoning. I've accepted your help. That's not the same as having a conversation. Tension crackled between them. Adrian stood, moving to the windows. The morning sun caught his profile, highlighting the exhaustion around his eyes. He hadn't been sleeping either. What do you want me to say, Vivian? I want you to tell me why you really did it. She stood too, crossing to him. Not the noble reason. Not the justice speech. The real reason. He turned to face her, and the raw emotion in his eyes nearly knocked her backward. Because I love you, he said, his voice rough. Because I've loved you since you walked into that conference room and challenged me in front of my entire board. Because watching you suffer was killing me. Because... He stopped, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Because I'm selfish, Vivian. I wanted you back and they were in the way. The honesty hit her like a wave. At least you're finally admitting it, she whispered. I've never lied to you. Not once. No. You've just made decisions for me. Protected me without asking if I wanted protection. Loved me without checking if I was ready to be loved. And if I had asked? His eyes burned. Would you have said yes? The question hung between them like a blade. Vivian's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She grabbed it from the coffee table, grateful for the interruption. Unknown number, stay away from the press. Don't trust him. He's not who you think he is. A friend. Ice flooded her veins. What is it? Adrian was beside her immediately. She showed him the message. His expression darkened. When did you get this? Just now. Adrian, who? He was already pulling out his own phone, typing rapidly. I'm forwarding this to my security team. Don't respond. Don't engage. Your security team? Vivian's head spun. You have a security team monitoring my phone? I have a security team monitoring threats to you. There's a difference. Is there? Her voice rose. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've wrapped me in bubble wrap without my consent. Your adoptive parents just got arrested for stealing millions from you. Adrian's composure cracked. You think they're going to go quietly? You think their lawyers won't try to discredit you, smear you, make you look like the villain? So you're protecting me from that too? Yes. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating off him. Yes, Vivian, I'm protecting you. That's what you do for people you love. You protect them. Even if they don't want it? Especially then. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Ask him about Meridian Tech. Ask him why he really bought the company. It wasn't business, it was you. Vivian's blood turned cold. She looked up at Adrian, saw the moment he read the message over her shoulder, saw something flicker across his face. Guilt. Adrian. Her voice barely worked. What does that mean? He closed his eyes. Vivian. What does it mean? When he opened his eyes, the pain in them nearly broke her. I bought Meridian Tech because you worked there. The world tilted. What? I'd seen you, he said quietly. 3 months before the acquisition. At a tech conference. You were presenting a paper on algorithmic bias in financial software. You were brilliant. And he laughed, a broken sound. I couldn't stop thinking about you. So I researched you. Found out where you worked. And I bought the company. Vivian stepped back. Then back again. You bought an entire company. To meet me. To give myself an excuse to meet you, yes. She couldn't find words. That's insane. That's love. That's obsession. Call it what you want, Adrian said, his voice steady despite the chaos. But every decision I made after seeing you give that presentation was about getting closer to you. The acquisition. The office visit. Asking you to dinner. All of it. Vivian's hands were shaking. Who else knows? No one. Just my legal team, and they're bound by confidentiality. And whoever just texted me. His jaw tightened. Yes. And that's what worries me. Another buzz. Unknown number, he has files on you. Photos. Records. Years of them. Ask to see his private server. Ask him what else he's been hiding. This is someone who knows you, Vivian said, her voice hollow. Someone with access to your private information. Adrian was already dialing. Mats, yes, I know what time it is. Someone's breached our security. I need you to trace a number. He rattled off the digits from her phone. And I need a full audit of anyone who's accessed the Meridian files in the last 72 hours. He paced while he listened, his expression growing darker. What do you mean it's clean? Then how? Another pause. Fine. Expand the search. And Mats? I want a team on Vivian. Physical security. Round the clock. Adrian, no, Vivian started. He held up a hand, still listening. I don't care if she objects. Make it happen. He ended the call. Vivian's anger flared white-hot. You don't get to make that decision. Someone is targeting you. Someone is targeting us. Or this situation. You don't know. Exactly. I don't know, which means I'm not taking chances. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Vivian grabbed her jacket from the back of the sofa. You steamroll over what I want because you've decided you know better. Where are you going? Oh, away. Somewhere you haven't already bugged or monitored or controlled. She stormed toward the elevator. Adrian caught her arm, gently, always gently, which somehow made it worse. Vivian, please. Just wait until we know what we're dealing with. She pulled free. What we're dealing with is you being unable to let me make my own choices. Even now. Even after everything. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. Adrian's face was devastated. I can't lose you again. Then stop trying to own me. The doors closed on his stricken expression. Vivian made it to the lobby before the tears came. The coffee shop 3 blocks from Adrian's building was blissfully anonymous. Vivian ordered a latte with too much sugar. He remembered that about me, and found a corner table away from the windows. Her phone sat on the table like a grenade. No new messages. She should block the number. Should tell Adrian's security team. Should do a dozen things that would be smart and safe. But all she could think about was, he bought a company to meet me. Was that romantic? Terrifying? Both? And the files. The photos. Years of them. What else had Adrian been hiding? Her phone rang. Not a text, a call. Same unknown number. Vivian's hand hovered over it. Every instinct screamed not to answer. She answered. Hello. A woman's voice, smooth and cultured. Ms. Ward. I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but I needed to get your attention. Who is this? Someone who understands what it's like to be loved by Adrian Montana, and who wants to save you from making a terrible mistake. Vivian's chest tightened. What mistake? Trusting him. The woman's voice carried a hint of sadness. He's a good man, Ms. Ward. Brilliant. Passionate. But his love is consuming. It swallows everything in its path. I should know, I barely escaped it myself. You're his ex. I was his fiancé. 3 years ago. Before you. The world tilted again. Fiancé. Adrian had been engaged. He'd never mentioned it. Not once. Why are you telling me this? Vivian asked. Because I see the pattern. He saw you, became obsessed, orchestrated circumstances to get close to you. It's what he does. And when you left him, when you tried to break free, did he let you go? Vivian's throat tightened. No, the woman continued. He watched you. Followed you. Inserted himself back into your life the moment you were vulnerable. That's not love, Ms. Ward. That's possession. You don't know what you're talking about. But Vivian's voice shook. Don't I? Ask yourself, in the 3 days since he rescued you, how many decisions have you made without his input? How many aspects of your life does he not control? Vivian's stomach churned. I'm staying at the Alexis Hotel, room 412, the woman said. If you want the truth about Adrian Montana, the whole truth, come see me. I have documents, photos, evidence of things he's done that would horrify you. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. You shouldn't trust anyone right now, that's my point. But at least I'm giving you a choice. Which is more than Adrian's ever done. The line went dead. Vivian sat in the coffee shop, her latte growing cold, her mind racing. An ex-fiancé. Secret files. Years of surveillance. But also, the way Adrian looked at her. The way he'd defended her. The way he'd fought for her when no one else had. Who was telling the truth? Her phone buzzed. This time, it was Adrian. Adrian, I'm sorry. For all of it. But please come back. Let me explain everything. No more secrets. She stared at the message. Then she looked up the Alexis Hotel on her phone. 12 minutes away. Vivian stood, grabbed her jacket, and walked out into the Seattle drizzle. She had no idea which direction to go. But for the first time in 16 years, the choice was entirely hers. Part 5. The Midpoint Revelation. The Alexis Hotel lobby smelled of money and orchids. Vivian stood just inside the glass doors, rain dripping from her jacket, watching well-dressed guests glide across marble floors like they belonged in a world she'd never quite fit into. Even after 16 years with the Crosses, she'd always felt like an imposter in places like this. Room 412. 4th floor. She could still turn around. Go back to Adrian's penthouse. Demand answers directly from him instead of getting them from a stranger who claimed to know him better. But the woman's words echoed in her mind. That's more than Adrian's ever done. Given you a choice. Vivian walked to the elevator and pressed the button. The ride up felt like descending into deep water, pressure building in her chest, ears, lungs. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, she stepped into a hushed hallway lined with pristine carpet and numbered doors. 412 was at the end of the corridor. Vivian raised her hand to knock, and the door opened before her knuckles made contact. The woman standing there was breathtaking. Tall, willowy, with honey blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon. She wore a cream silk blouse and tailored pants that screamed old money. Her face was refined, aristocratic, the kind of beauty that aged like fine wine. And her eyes were sad. Ms. Ward, she said, her voice the same cultured tone from the phone. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I'm not sure I should have, Vivian replied. The woman smiled faintly. Honest. I like that. Adrian always preferred honest women. She stepped aside. Please come in. The hotel suite was lavish, sitting area, kitchenette, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A laptop sat open on the coffee table, surrounded by manila folders and photographs. So many photographs. Vivian's stomach nodded. Can I get you something to drink? The woman asked. Tea? Water? How about your name? Of course. Forgive me. She extended a manicured hand. Charlotte Kensington. Though when Adrian and I were together, I was Charlotte Kensington Montana. Briefly. Vivian didn't take the offered hand. You said you were his fiancée, not his wife. Charlotte lowered her hand, that sad smile flickering again. Observant. We were engaged for 8 months. The wedding was planned, cathedral ceremony, 500 guests, Vera Wang dress. And then, 3 weeks before we were supposed to say, I do, Adrian called it off. Why? Because he realized he didn't love me. Charlotte moved to the windows, her silhouette elegant against the gray Seattle skyline. Or rather, he realized he loved his work more than he loved me. His companies. His empire. His obsessive need to control everything in his orbit. Vivian's defenses rose. That doesn't match the man I know. Doesn't it? Charlotte turned, her expression gentle but piercing. The man you know bought a company to manufacture a meeting with you. Has he told you that part yet? Yes, Vivian said. He told me. Charlotte's eyebrows rose. Did he tell you it cost him $340 million? That Meridian Tech was failing, hemorrhaging money, essentially worthless from a business standpoint? But he bought it anyway because you worked there. The number hit Vivian like a fist. $340 million. He told me he bought it because I worked there, Vivian said carefully. He didn't mention the price. Of course not. Because that would reveal just how deep his obsession runs. Charlotte picked up the laptop, tapping keys. Come look at this. Every instinct told Vivian to run. But her feet carried her forward. Charlotte turned the screen toward her. It was a folder directory. Dated files going back nearly 3 years. Vivian's blood turned to ice. Charlotte opened the first file. It was a dossier, comprehensive, detailed, invasive. Vivian's employment history. Her college transcripts. Her social media presence. Medical records. How did he get my medical records? Vivian whispered. Money buys access, Charlotte said quietly. And Adrian has a lot of money. She clicked through more files. Photos of Vivian leaving her apartment. Entering coffee shops. Walking through the Meridian Tech parking lot. Time-stamped. Catalogued. 3 years of surveillance. He was watching me before we ever met, Vivian breathed. He was studying you. Learning everything about you so that when he finally orchestrated your meeting, he could be exactly what you needed. Charlotte closed the laptop gently. That conference room presentation you gave? He knew every point you were going to make. He'd already read your research paper, read everything you'd ever published. The questions he asked weren't spontaneous. They were calculated to make you think he saw you as an intellectual equal. Vivian's legs felt weak. She sank onto the sofa. The dinner invitations, Charlotte continued. He asked you to Il Terrazzo Carmine, didn't he? Yes. Vivian's voice was hollow. How did you? Because it's in your social media history as your favorite restaurant. A place you'd mentioned wanting to try but couldn't afford. Adrian doesn't do spontaneous, Ms. Ward. He does strategic. The room spun. Everything, every moment she'd thought was organic, genuine, real, had been choreographed. Why are you showing me this? Vivian asked. Charlotte sat beside her, not touching but close enough that Vivian could smell her expensive perfume. Because I see myself in you. Brilliant. Damaged. Desperate to believe someone could love us for who we are, not what we represent. Her voice softened. Adrian doesn't fall in love with people, Ms. Ward. He falls in love with projects. You were broken, the orphan, the adopted daughter struggling to belong, and he saw something he could fix. Something he could save. That's not, Vivian started, but her voice cracked. Was it true? Was she just another project? I know it hurts, Charlotte said. Believe me, I know. But you deserve the truth. And the truth is that Adrian Montana is incapable of the kind of love you need. The kind that sets you free instead of caging you. Vivian's phone buzzed. She ignored it. There's more, Charlotte said quietly. She picked up one of the manila folders. This is the part one really need you to see. The part that made me reach out to you. She opened the folder. Inside were financial documents. Dense, complex spreadsheets that made Vivian's head hurt. What am I looking at? She asked. The Cross family embezzlement case. Adrian's investigation. Charlotte pointed to a highlighted section. Look at the dates. Vivian leaned forward. The documents showed wire transfers from her trust fund into Cross Industries accounts. But there was another column, one she hadn't seen before. Secondary recipient. And the account numbers led to a shell corporation. Cascade Holdings LLC. I don't understand, Vivian said. Charlotte pulled out another document. Cascade Holdings is owned by a man named Robert Thorne. He's a business partner of your adoptive father's. And 3 months ago, Adrian Montana acquired a 60% stake in Cascade Holdings. The implications hit Vivian like a freight train. Adrian owns the company that received my stolen money? Not just owns. Profits from. Every dollar the Crosses embezzled and funneled into Cascade Holdings has been generating returns. Returns that Adrian now controls. Vivian's hands shook. That means... It means Adrian didn't just discover the embezzlement, Charlotte said gently. He's been benefiting from it. And by having your adoptive parents arrested, he removes the only people who could testify to his involvement. If your mind is blown right now, drop a comment. And make sure you're subscribed because this revelation is just the beginning. Everything you think you know is about to change. The room tilted. Vivian stood abruptly, needing space, needing air. This can't be right, she said. Adrian wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Manipulate a situation to his advantage? Charlotte's voice carried pity. Ms. Ward, Adrian Montana built a multi-billion-dollar empire by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. Do you really think he'd jeopardize that for love? Vivian's phone buzzed again. This time she looked. Adrian, Vivian please. Whatever you're hearing, let me explain. Charlotte Kensington is not who she says she is. Her heart hammered. He knows I'm here, she said. Charlotte sighed. Of course he does. He probably has people following you, tracking your phone. He can't help himself. Vivian's mind raced. None of this made sense. Adrian had been furious about the embezzlement. Genuinely furious. She'd seen it in his eyes. Unless that was calculated too. I need to leave, she said. Of course. Charlotte stood, her movements graceful. But before you go, ask yourself, in 3 days with Adrian, how much of your own life have you controlled? Your housing, your security, your legal representation. Even this conversation, he's probably already planning how to spin it, how to explain it away, how to make you doubt what you've seen. Stop. Vivian's voice cracked. Just stop. Charlotte's expression softened. I'm sorry, truly. I know this is devastating. But you deserve better than being someone's obsession. You deserve to be someone's choice. Vivian grabbed her jacket and walked to the door. Ms. Ward? Charlotte called. Vivian turned. There's a car waiting downstairs. Silver Mercedes. The driver's name is Thomas. He'll take you anywhere you want to go, anywhere except back to Adrian. Just for tonight. Give yourself time to think without his influence. Why are you helping me? Charlotte's smile was infinitely sad. Because no one helped me. And I've spent 3 years wishing someone had. Vivian fled. The hotel lobby was a blur of lights and faces. Vivian pushed through the glass doors into the rain, her chest heaving, her mind fragmenting. $340 million. Years of surveillance. Profiting from her stolen money. Projects. He falls in love with projects. A silver Mercedes idled at the curb. The driver, an older man in a neat black suit, opened the back door. Ms. Ward? Miss Kensington said you might need a ride. Vivian stared at the open door. At the escape route Charlotte had provided. Her phone rang. Adrian. She declined the call. It rang again immediately. She declined again. Text came through. Vivian, please. Charlotte Kensington was never my fiancée. I don't know who she is, but she's lying. Don't trust her. Come back. Let me show you the truth. Never my fiancé. Vivian looked at the driver. The Alexis Hotel. Do you know if Charlotte Kensington is a registered guest? The man's expression remained neutral. I'm just a driver, ma'am. Miss Kensington hired me for the evening. How did she hire you? Through an app. Paid very generously to be on call. An app. Anonymous. Untraceable. Vivian's detective mind, the one that had once analyzed data for a living, kicked into gear. Take me to Seattle Central Library, she said suddenly. The main branch. The driver nodded. Of course, ma'am. She climbed into the Mercedes, and as they pulled away from the hotel, Vivian looked back at the building. On the 4th floor, A figure stood in a window. Charlotte. Watching her leave. Seattle Central Library was nearly empty at this hour, just a few students and one homeless man sleeping in the periodical section. Vivian found a computer terminal in the back and logged into a public account. Her hands flew across the keyboard. First search, Charlotte Kensington. Dozens of results. A socialite from Boston. Board member of several charities. Heiress to a shipping fortune. But nothing linking her to Adrian. Vivian refined the search. Charlotte Kensington, Adrian Montana. Nothing. Charlotte Kensington engaged. One result, a society page announcement from 4 years ago. Charlotte Kensington engaged to businessman Richard Castellan. Not Adrian. Vivian's pulse quickened. She searched, Richard Castellan. Real estate developer. Died 2 years ago in a car accident. Survived by his fiancée, Charlotte Kensington, and his younger brother. Vivian's blood turned to ice. Adrian Castellan Montana. Adrian's full name. She'd never known his middle name. Charlotte hadn't been Adrian's fiancée. She'd been engaged to Adrian's brother. The brother who'd died 2 years ago. Right around the time Vivian had met Adrian. "Oh my God," Vivian whispered. Her phone rang. Adrian again. "This time," she answered. "Where are you?" His voice was ragged, desperate. "Vivian, please tell me where you are." "Your brother," she said. "Richard." Charlotte was engaged to Richard. A long pause. Then, "Yes. You never mentioned you had a brother." "I don't anymore. He's dead." Adrian's voice broke. "Vivian, where are you? Charlotte is dangerous. She blames me for Richard's death, and she'll do anything to hurt me, including using you." "Did you cause his death?" "No." The word was fierce. "But I couldn't stop it either, and she'll never forgive me for that. Please, Vivian. Trust me. Come back." "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered. "I saw the files, Adrian. Years of surveillance. The Cascade Holdings connection. The $340 million. I can explain all of it. Every single thing. But not like this. Not over the phone while you're—" He stopped. "Where are you?" "The library." She looked around. No one near her. No one watching. "How did you know?" "Because I know you. When you're overwhelmed, you go to libraries. You did it in college, according to your roommate. You did it after we broke up. You spent 6 hours in the university library the next day." Her roommate. He'd talked to her roommate. "You're proving Charlotte's point," Vivian said, her voice hollow. "You've studied me like a lab specimen. I've loved you like a man who couldn't afford to screw it up." Adrian's composure shattered completely. "Yes, I researched you. Yes, I learned everything I could before we met. Because I knew you were going to matter, and I didn't want to be some smooth-talking billionaire who swept you off your feet with money and charm. I wanted to actually see you, understand you, be worthy of you." Tears burned Vivian's eyes. "And the Cascade Holdings connection? I bought into Cascade because of the embezzlement. I was building a legal case, and I needed access to their financial records. The only way to get that without tipping off the crosses was to become a stakeholder. Every dollar I've made from that investment is sitting in an escrow account with your name on it. My lawyers can show you the paperwork." "Could that be true?" "I want to believe you," Vivian whispered. "Then believe me. Please." His voice gentled. "I'm standing outside the library right now. I won't come in unless you want me to. But Vivian, I need you to hear the whole truth. About Richard. About Charlotte. About why I've done everything I've done." Vivian looked toward the library's front windows. Through the rain-streaked glass, she could see a figure standing beneath a streetlight. Adrian. Soaked to the bone. No umbrella. Just standing there in the rain, staring at the building like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. Waiting for her decision. The librarian at the front desk announced the building would close in 15 minutes. Vivian had to choose. Trust the woman who'd shown her damning evidence and a conspiracy. Or trust the man who'd loved her with an intensity that terrified her. She stood, grabbed her jacket, walked to the library entrance. Adrian saw her through the glass. Hope and fear warred across his face. Vivian pushed open the door and stepped into the rain. They stood 3 feet apart. The rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead, made his white shirt cling to his chest. He looked destroyed. "Tell me about your brother," Vivian said. Adrian's face spasmed with grief. "Here. Right here. Right now. No more secrets." He took a shuddering breath. "Richard was my older brother. My best friend. And he killed himself 2 years ago because he thought he'd lost everything that mattered." The rain poured down around them. And Adrian began to talk. The rain fell like tears from a grieving sky. Adrian stood before Vivian on the library steps, water streaming down his face, his voice raw with a pain that had been buried for 2 years. "Richard was everything I wasn't," he began. "Charming. Easy with people. He could walk into a room and make everyone love him in 5 minutes. I was the awkward one. The one who preferred computers to conversations." Vivian's heart clenched, but she didn't move. Didn't touch him. Just listened. "When our parents died, I was 19, he was 23. Richard took care of everything. The funeral. The company. He put his own dreams on hold to make sure I could finish college, build Montana Tech. He believed in me when I was nobody." Thunder rumbled in the distance. "So when his real estate development company started failing 5 years ago, I did everything I could to help him. Invested millions. Connected him with investors. But Richard," Adrian's voice cracked. "Richard had gotten involved with the wrong people. He'd taken loans from someone dangerous to cover his losses. And when the development projects collapsed, he owed money he couldn't pay back." "Charlotte's family?" Vivian asked quietly. "No. Worse. A man named Victor Constantine. Russian oligarch with connections to organized crime." Adrian's hands clenched into fists. Victor didn't just want his money back. He wanted to use Richard's connections, his reputation, to launder money through real estate deals. Richard refused. Said he wouldn't destroy his name that way. Vivian's chest tightened. Victor threatened him. Threatened Charlotte. Threatened me. Richard came to me, terrified, begging for help. And Adrian's voice broke completely. I told him I'd handle it. That I'd use my resources to make Victor back off. I was arrogant. Thought my money and lawyers could solve anything. What happened? Vivian whispered. I went to Victor. Offered to pay Richard's debt plus interest. $50 million. Victor laughed in my face. Said he didn't want money, he wanted compliance. Wanted Richard to be his puppet. Adrian's eyes were haunted. So I threatened him. Said I'd go to the FBI, to the press, expose his entire operation. I thought I was protecting my brother. Adrian. I made it worse. The words came out like broken glass. Victor decided if he couldn't use Richard, he'd make an example of him. 2 weeks later, Richard was driving home from meeting with Charlotte. His brakes failed on a mountain road. The car went over a cliff. Vivian's hand flew to her mouth. The police ruled it an accident. Mechanical failure. But I knew what Victor had done. Adrian's face twisted with anguish. And I couldn't prove it. Couldn't touch him. Because men like Victor don't leave evidence. Charlotte blamed you, Vivian said. Charlotte doesn't know about Victor. No one does except me and my head of security. Adrian looked at her, rain and tears mixing on his face. The official story is that Richard couldn't handle his business failures. That he drove off that cliff intentionally. Suicide. You let people think your brother killed himself? I let Charlotte believe it because the truth, that he died because of my arrogance, because I provoked a monster, would destroy her. His voice dropped to a whisper. And it would put her in danger. Victor made it clear, anyone who knows the truth becomes a liability. The rain intensified, but neither of them moved. Charlotte spiraled after Richard died, Adrian continued. Blamed herself. Blamed me. She was hospitalized twice for depression. I paid for everything, the best doctors, the best facilities, but she refused to see me. Refused to speak to me. Until 3 months ago. Vivian's stomach nodded. What happened 3 months ago? She contacted me. Said she was ready to talk, to heal, to understand. We met for coffee. She seemed better. Stable. She asked about my life and he closed his eyes. I told her about you. About the woman I'd loved and lost. About how I was trying to find a way back to you. And she used that information. I didn't realize it then. But yes. Adrian opened his eyes. 2 weeks after that coffee, her psychiatrist called me. Said Charlotte had stopped taking her medication. That she'd become fixated on the idea that I'd moved on while Richard was dead. That I didn't deserve happiness when I'd taken Richard from her. Ice flooded Vivian's veins. Her psychiatrist said she was experiencing a psychotic break. Adrian continued. Obsessive. Delusional. Potentially dangerous. I hired security to keep an eye on her, but she disappeared a month ago. Stopped going to her appointments. Stopped contacting her family. He looked at Vivian with desperate eyes. I've had people searching for her. And then tonight, when you got those texts, I knew it was her. The evidence she showed me was real surveillance footage and real documents, but twisted. Taken out of context. Adrian pulled out his phone with shaking hands. The research files she showed you? Those are standard background checks. I run them on every executive I'm considering hiring, every company I'm acquiring. Yes, I researched you before we met. But those photos she showed you, the timestamp surveillance, those were taken by the security team I hired after you left me. To make sure you were safe. To make sure the crosses weren't hurting you. He showed her his phone. A message thread with someone named Mats. Adrian, 2 years ago, discreet protection only. She doesn't want to see me, fine. But I need to know she's safe. Mats, understood. No direct contact unless there's a threat. Adrian, and Mats, if she ever needs help and won't ask for it, you tell me immediately. Vivian's hands trembled as she read through months of messages. Reports of her daily routines, but nothing invasive. Nothing sinister. Just, subject safe. No threats detected. Until 3 days ago, subject evicted from Cross residence. She has nowhere to go. And Adrian's response, I'm going to her. Tonight. I wasn't stalking you, Adrian said quietly. I was making sure you survived a family I knew was toxic. And I was waiting, hoping, for a chance to prove I could be what you needed. Vivian's chest ached. The Cascade Holdings connection? Adrian pulled up more documents on his phone. Legal contracts. Escrow agreements. I bought into Cascade to access their records. Every penny of profit from that investment, $4.7 million so far, is in an account waiting for you. I was going to give it to you after the trial. As restitution for what the Crosses stole. It was all there. Documented. Verified. Charlotte had told the truth, but only fragments of it. Twisted into weapons. I'm so sorry, Adrian whispered. For all of it. For researching you before we met. For not telling you about Richard. For making decisions about your safety without asking. But Vivian, his voice broke. I'm not sorry for loving you. And I'm not sorry for making sure the people who hurt you face justice. Vivian opened her mouth to respond. And her phone rang. A known number. She answered, putting it on speaker. Charlotte's voice came through, but it was different now. Harder. Colder. Touching story, Adrian. Really? You always did know how to play the grieving brother. Her laugh was brittle. Did you tell her the real reason Richard drove off that cliff? Did you tell her about the argument you had the night before? Adrian's face went white. What argument? Vivian asked. Oh, he didn't mention that part? Charlotte's voice dripped venom. The part where Adrian told Richard he was weak. That he'd brought his problems on himself. That Adrian was tired of cleaning up his messes. That's not, Adrian started. I was there, Adrian. Charlotte screamed. I heard you. Richard came home devastated. Said his own brother thought he was worthless. And the next day, he drove off that cliff. Charlotte, you know that's not what happened. What I know is that Richard is dead, and you're standing in the rain playing hero with some orphan girl you've manipulated into loving you. Her voice turned deadly calm. You took my fiancé. So I'm going to take everything from you. The line went dead. Vivian's blood turned to ice. Adrian, what did she mean? Sirens split the night. Police cars, Three of them screeched to a stop in front of the library. Officers poured out, hands on their weapons. Adrian Montana, a female officer shouted. Hands where we can see them. Adrian slowly raised his hands, his face a mask of confusion. What's going on? The officer approached, handcuffs ready. You're under arrest for stalking, harassment, and violation of a restraining order filed by Charlotte Kensington. That's impossible, Adrian said. I haven't gone near her. She has photos of you outside her hotel tonight. Video footage. Text messages threatening her. The officer grabbed his arm. You have the right to remain silent. Wait. Vivian stepped forward. He's been with me all evening. He couldn't have been at her hotel. The officer looked at her with pity. Ma'am, are you Vivian Ward? Yes, but... Ms. Kensington also filed a report claiming Mr. Montana has been holding you against your will. That he's manipulated you into defending him. She turned back to Adrian. Sir, turn around. This is insane, Adrian said, but he didn't resist. Charlotte is having a psychotic break. Call her psychiatrist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell at Seattle Psychiatric Associates. She'll confirm. We'll sort it out at the station. The officer cuffed him. Adrian looked at Vivian over his shoulder, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke her. Komatz, my head of security. He has all the documentation proving where I've been tonight. He can... Sir, stop talking. They led him toward the police car. Vivian's mind raced. This was wrong. All wrong. Another officer approached Vivian, a younger man with kind eyes. Ms. Ward, I need to ask you some questions. Have you been staying with Mr. Montana voluntarily? Yes. Of course. Her voice rose. He's done nothing wrong. Has he ever made you feel threatened? Pressured you to stay with him? No. He's been protecting me from my adoptive family. The family that was recently arrested based on evidence Mr. Montana provided? The implication hung in the air like poison. Vivian's chest constricted. You think he fabricated the embezzlement case? I think we have a lot of questions that need answers. The officer's radio crackled. He listened, then looked at Vivian with sympathy. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come to the station as well. There's been a development. What development? Charlotte Kensington was just taken to Seattle General Hospital. Severe injuries. She's claiming Adrian Montana hired someone to attack her. The world tilted. That's impossible, Vivian whispered. He's been here, which is why we need to sort this out downtown. The officer gestured to another police car. Please, ma'am. Vivian looked at Adrian. He was being pushed into the back of a cruiser, his expensive suit soaked through, his hands cuffed behind his back. He caught her eyes one last time and mouthed, "Trust me." The police station was fluorescent bright and soul-crushing. Vivian sat in an interview room that smelled of stale coffee and desperation, a female detective across from her taking notes. Walk me through your relationship with Adrian Montana one more time, the detective said. Vivian had told the story 3 times already. How they'd met. How they'd dated. How she'd left him. How he'd reappeared 3 days ago. And you're staying at his penthouse voluntarily? Yes. Has he ever threatened you? No. Has he ever made you feel like you couldn't leave? He gave me the master bedroom and took the guest room himself. Vivian's frustration boiled over. He's been nothing but respectful. Even when he had your adoptive parents arrested? They deserve to be arrested. They stole from me. The detective's expression remained neutral. Ms. Ward, I understand you're loyal to Mr. Montana. But we have evidence that suggests his feelings for you might be obsessive. Controlling. You've been talking to Charlotte. Ms. Kensington provided us with concerning documentation. Surveillance photos. Financial records showing Mr. Montana spent an extraordinary amount of money to orchestrate meetings with you. The detective slid a folder across the table. This is a pattern of behavior that concerns us. Vivian opened the folder. It was everything Charlotte had shown her, plus more. Photos of Adrian outside her old apartment building. Screenshots of what looked like tracking software with her location marked. Where did she get these? Vivian demanded. She says Mr. Montana showed them to her himself. Bragged about his ability to monitor you without your knowledge. That's a lie. Is it? The detective leaned forward. Ms. Ward, has Mr. Montana ever accessed your phone without permission? Your computer? Your accounts? Vivian's mind raced. The security team monitoring her phone. The background checks. The research files. All of it explainable. All of it justifiable. But twisted in the right light, it looked damning. I want to see him, Vivian said. I want to see Adrian. That's not possible right now. He's being questioned about the assault on Ms. Kensington. He didn't assault anyone. He was with me. You said you were at the library alone for approximately 45 minutes while Mr. Montana was outside. That's plenty of time for him to have sent someone to Ms. Kensington's hotel. This is insane. Vivian stood. Am I under arrest? No. Then I'm leaving. The detective stood as well. Ms. Ward, I understand this is difficult. But I need you to consider something. Adrian Montana is a very wealthy, very powerful man. Men like that are used to getting what they want, however they want it. Sometimes their obsessions become dangerous. Adrian is not dangerous. Charlotte Kensington is in the hospital with a broken arm and a concussion. She says a man matching the description of one of Mr. Montana's security personnel attacked her in her hotel room 2 hours ago. The detective's voice softened. We have hotel security footage showing a man entering her room. We're working on identifying him now. Vivian's stomach churned. If someone hurt Charlotte, Adrian didn't order it. How can you be sure? Because I know him. Do you? The detective pulled out another photo. This one showed Adrian with a group of men in dark suits. These are members of Mr. Montana's security team. Former military. Former intelligence operatives. Men trained to handle delicate situations. The implication was clear. You're saying he has the resources to have someone hurt, Vivian said slowly. I'm saying he has the resources to do a lot of things most people can't, including making problems disappear. The detective paused. Ms. Ward, did you know that Victor Constantine, the man Adrian claims threatened his brother, died in a suspicious fire in Moscow 6 months ago? The room seemed to lose oxygen. What? Victor Constantine, Russian businessman, died along with 2 of his associates when his private club burned down. Authorities ruled it arson but never found the culprit. The detective watched Vivian's reaction carefully. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Right around when Adrian was beginning his investigation into your adoptive parents. You think Adrian? Vivian couldn't even finish the sentence. I think Adrian Montana is a man who eliminates obstacles. And right now, Charlotte Kensington is an obstacle between him and you. Vivian's mind spun. No, this was wrong. All wrong. Adrian wouldn't he? A voice in her head whispered. He bought a company to meet you. He had your family arrested. He's controlled every aspect of your life for 3 days. What else is he capable of? I need to make a call, Vivian said. Of course. The detective gestured to the door. There's a phone in the lobby. Vivian walked out on trembling legs. The station buzzed with activity, officers, civilians, lawyers in expensive suits. She found a payphone and dialed the only number she'd memorized. It rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered, Ward Residence. Giselle. Vivian almost hung up. But desperation made her speak. It's me. Silence. Then, Viv. Giselle's voice was thick with tears. Oh my God, Viv, I've been trying to call you. I know. It's Mom and Dad. The lawyers say they could go to prison for years. Our assets are frozen. The house might be seized. Everything is falling apart. Good, a cold part of Vivian thought. Let them suffer. But she said, I'm sorry. Are you? Giselle's voice turned bitter. You did this. You and your billionaire boyfriend. You destroyed us. You destroyed yourselves by stealing from me. We gave you everything. Giselle screamed. A home. The family. A life you never would have had. And this is how you repay us. The old guilt tried to surface. The familiar weight of obligation, of gratitude, of being the orphan who should be thankful for scraps. But Vivian pushed it down. "You stole $2 million from me," she said quietly. "You made me believe I was worthless while you spent my parents' money on yourselves. That's not giving. That's taking." Giselle's sob echoed through the line. "I didn't know, Viv. I swear I didn't know about the money. Mom and Dad, they said it was family funds. I thought." "It doesn't matter what you thought. Please." Giselle's voice broke completely. "Please, if you ever cared about us at all, drop the charges. Tell the police it was a misunderstanding. We'll pay you back." "With what? Money you don't have? Viv, please. I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. My fiancé left me. Did you know that? Broke off the engagement the moment the scandal hit. Said he couldn't be associated with criminals. I have nothing left." Vivian closed her eyes. Despite everything, hearing her sister so broken hurt. "I can't help you, Giselle." "Can't or won't?" "Both." A long pause. Then Giselle's voice turned cold as winter. "He's changing you, Montana. He's turning you into someone cruel." "No," Vivian said. "He's helping me become someone who doesn't accept cruelty. There's a difference." She hung up and stood in the police station lobby, surrounded by strangers, more alone than she'd ever been. Her adoptive family hated her. Adrian was in custody, possibly guilty of things she couldn't even comprehend. Charlotte was in the hospital, possibly telling the truth about his obsession. And Vivian had no one to turn to. Nowhere to go. She was 27 years old, and for the second time in her life, she was an orphan. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Unknown, the bail hearing is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Adrian's lawyers will get him out. And then he'll come for you. Run while you still can." Vivian stared at the message. Then at the police station around her. Then at the exit. She could run. Disappear. Start over somewhere Adrian's money and influence couldn't reach. Or she could stay. Fight. Demand the truth from everyone. Charlotte, Adrian, her own fractured heart. Outside, rain still fell. Inside, Vivian Ward stood at a crossroads. And for the first time in her life, she had absolutely no idea which path led to salvation and which led to destruction. Vivian didn't run. Instead, she walked back into the interview room where the detective was gathering her files. "I want to see the hotel security footage," Vivian said. The detective looked up, surprised. "Ms. Ward, you said there's footage of someone entering Charlotte's room. I want to see it. That's evidence in an ongoing investigation. And I'm a witness. A victim, according to your theory." Vivian's voice steadied. "If Adrian really is this criminal mastermind you're painting him as, then I deserve to see the evidence. Don't I have that right?" The detective studied her for a long moment. Then nodded slowly. "Wait here." She left and returned 10 minutes later with a laptop. She set it on the table and opened a video file. The timestamp read 8:47 p.m., while Vivian had been at the library. The security footage showed a hotel hallway. After a few seconds, a man appeared. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket and baseball cap that obscured his face. He knocked on room 412. The door opened, Charlotte, visible for just a moment. The man said something. Charlotte stepped back. The man entered. The door closed. 3 minutes later, the detective said, fast-forwarding, "He exits." The footage showed the same man leaving, walking quickly but not running. Still, his face wasn't visible. And 7 minutes after that, Miss Kensington called 911 reporting an assault. Vivian stared at the screen. "You can't see his face." "No." But Miss Kensington identified him as one of Adrian Montana's security personnel. A man named Mats Cora. Mats. The same Mats from Adrian's text messages. "Did you bring Mats in for questioning?" Vivian asked. "We're trying to locate him. He's not answering calls, and his last known address is a corporate apartment owned by Montana Tech." The detective closed the laptop. "Ms. Ward, I know you want to believe Mr. Montana is innocent, but can I see Charlotte's injuries?" The detective blinked. "Excuse me?" You said she has a broken arm and a concussion. I want to see the medical report. Why? Because I need to know if this is real or if I'm being manipulated. Vivian's voice hardened. Everyone has been making decisions for me, telling me what to think, who to trust. I'm done with that. I want evidence. Real evidence. Something shifted in the detective's expression. Respect, maybe. Wait here. She left again. Vivian sat in the harsh fluorescent light, her mind racing. Something about the video bothered her. The way the man had walked. The way Charlotte had opened the door without hesitation, without checking who it was first. Like she'd been expecting him. The detective returned with papers. This is the preliminary medical report from Seattle General. Vivian scanned it quickly. Fracture of the left radius and ulna. Contusions consistent with blunt force trauma. Concussion with brief loss of consciousness. Real injuries. Not fabricated. But it says she was struck with a blunt object, Vivian said. What object? A lamp from the hotel room. We recovered it at the scene. Were there fingerprints? The lab is still processing. The detective crossed her arms. What are you looking for, Ms. Ward? I don't know yet. Vivian read through the report again. Can I speak with Charlotte? Absolutely not. She's asked that you have no contact with her. Then can I see her statement? The detective hesitated. That's highly irregular. So is arresting a billionaire based on the word of someone who's been diagnosed with a psychotic disorder. Vivian met the detective's eyes. You said Charlotte's psychiatrist can verify her mental state. Have you spoken to Dr. Mitchell? The detective's expression flickered. We've left messages. But you haven't actually confirmed Charlotte's diagnosis. Medical records are protected, but they can be subpoenaed, especially if there's reason to believe a witness is unreliable. Vivian leaned forward. Detective, I'm not trying to obstruct your investigation. I'm trying to make sure you have all the facts. Because if Charlotte is having a psychotic break, her testimony might not be reliable. And if Adrian is being framed, why would she frame him? Because she's grieving. Because she blames him for her fiancé's death. Because she's not thinking clearly. Vivian's chest tightened. I've been manipulated by people I trusted my entire life. I know what it looks like. And Charlotte showed me just enough truth to make her lies believable. The detective was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat down. What lies? She told me Adrian was obsessed with me. Showed me surveillance photos and research files. But she framed them as stalking when they were actually security measures. She showed me financial documents connecting Adrian to my stolen trust fund, but she left out the part where he was building a legal case. Vivian's voice grew stronger. She's brilliant. She knows exactly how to twist facts into weapons. Or, the detective said carefully, Adrian Montana has convinced you to defend him despite overwhelming evidence. Then let me prove it. Vivian stood. Let me talk to his security chief, Matz. Let me see the documentation Adrian mentioned. Give me 1 hour to investigate on my own, and if I can't find anything that creates reasonable doubt, I'll accept that I've been fooled. Ms. Ward. 1 hour. That's all I'm asking. The detective studied her. You really believe he's innocent? I believe I deserve to make that decision based on facts, not fear. Vivian's voice didn't waver. And I believe Charlotte is counting on everyone being so afraid of Adrian's power that they won't question her story. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, drop a comment. And smash that subscribe button because Vivian is about to uncover something huge. The detective's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her expression changed. You're sure? She said into the phone. Absolutely certain? She hung up and looked at Vivian with new eyes. That was the lab. They processed the lamp from Charlotte's hotel room. Vivian's heart hammered. And the only fingerprints on it belonged to Charlotte Kensington. The room seemed to stop spinning. She hit herself? Vivian breathed. Or staged the scene to look that way. The detective's jaw tightened. But that doesn't explain the man on the security footage. Someone entered her room. What if she invited him? What if she paid someone to come to her room so there would be footage, then injured herself after he left. The detective shook her head. That's elaborate. Risky. Why go to such lengths? Because she wants to destroy Adrian. Vivian's mind raced. And she knew that attacking herself would be the one thing that would guarantee his arrest. What better way to prove he's dangerous than to become his victim? The detective grabbed her phone again. I need to speak with Ms. Kensington immediately. Wait. Vivian grabbed her arm. If you confront her now, she'll just claim she was defending herself. That she grabbed the lamp to fight off her attacker. You need more evidence. What kind of evidence? The man on the footage. You need to find him and confirm he's not Matt's Cora. That he's someone Charlotte hired. Vivian pulled out her phone. And I need to call Adrian's legal team. Ms. Ward. Please. 1 hour. Let me do this. The detective looked at her for a long moment. Then nodded. 1 hour. But I'm coming with you. Adrian's lead attorney was a sharp-eyed woman named Rebecca Huang who met them at Montana Tech headquarters at midnight. The building was mostly dark, but Rebecca had access to everything. She led Vivian and the detective to a secure conference room with floor-to-ceiling monitors. Mr. Montana instructed me to provide Ms. Ward with full access to all documentation related to her case, Rebecca said, typing rapidly on a keyboard. Detective, I assume you have a warrant? I have probable cause to investigate potential fraud in an ongoing assault case, the detective replied. Rebecca smiled thinly. Good enough. The monitors lit up with files. Thousands of them. This is the complete archive of Mr. Montana's investigation into the Cross family embezzlement, Rebecca explained. Every financial record. Every legal document. Every communication. She pulled up a specific folder. And this is the Cascade Holdings file. Vivian leaned forward. The documents showed exactly what Adrian had told her, a strategic investment to gain access to financial records. Legal memos outlining the plan. And most importantly, an escrow account, Vivian whispered, reading the screen. In my name. $4.7 million. Every penny Mr. Montana earned from the Cascade investment, Rebecca confirmed. He never intended to keep it. It was always meant for you. Restitution for what was stolen. The detective examined the documents. This doesn't prove he didn't assault Ms. Kensington. No, Rebecca agreed. But it does establish a pattern of behavior. Mr. Montana doesn't operate in shadows. He documents everything. If he were going to have someone assault Charlotte Kensington, there would be no security footage. No witnesses. No evidence. Because he's smart enough to cover his tracks, the detective countered. Or because he didn't do it. Rebecca pulled up another file. This is the GPS data from Matt's Cora's phone for the last 48 hours. A map appeared on screen. A red line traced Matt's movements. At 8:47 p.m., when the man entered Charlotte's hotel room, Matt's had been at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. He was picking up Adrian's mother, Rebecca said. She flew in from San Francisco for a surprise visit. Here's the flight manifest. Here's the airport security footage showing Matt's at baggage claim. Time stamped. The detective leaned closer to the screen, verifying the information. The man in Charlotte's hotel wasn't Matt's Cora, Vivian said. No, Rebecca agreed. Which means Charlotte lied about identifying her attacker. The detective pulled out her phone. I need to bring Ms. Kensington in for questioning. Wait, Vivian said. There's something else. The surveillance photos Charlotte showed me, the ones of Adrian outside my apartment building. Can we verify when those were taken? Rebecca typed rapidly. What address? Vivian rattled it off. Rebecca pulled up more files. Mr. Montana's security team did conduct surveillance of your residence, she said carefully. But only from public areas, and only to monitor for threats. They never entered the building or accessed your personal space without your knowledge. When did the surveillance start? The detective asked. Rebecca checked the logs. 2 years ago. May 15th. The day after Ms. Ward ended her relationship with Mr. Montana. And when did it end? Vivian asked. It didn't. It's ongoing. Rebecca met Vivian's eyes. Mr. Montana never stopped making sure you were safe. The words hit Vivian like a wave. 2 years. 2 years of watching over her from a distance, making sure she was okay, never interfering. Until the crosses threw her out. That's still stalking, the detective said, but her voice had lost its certainty. It's protection, Rebecca corrected. There's a legal distinction. Mr. Montana never approached Ms. Ward. Never contacted her. Never restricted her movements or freedom. He simply ensured she had security she didn't know she needed. From what? The detective challenged. Rebecca pulled up another file. From this. The screen filled with police reports. Incidents near Vivian's apartment building over the last 2 years. A break-in 2 floors below her unit. A stalker arrested in the parking garage. A man who'd been following women in the building. An attempted assault in the stairwell that was interrupted by an anonymous Good Samaritan. That Good Samaritan was one of Mr. Montana's security personnel, Rebecca said. He prevented an assault and left before the police arrived because Mr. Montana didn't want Ms. Ward to know he was watching over her. Vivian's throat tightened. He saved someone in my building? He saved you, specifically twice. Once from a drunk driver who ran a red light. His security car blocked the intersection just in time. And once from a potential mugging. His team intervened before the mugger reached you. Both times, they disappeared before you saw them. Tears burned behind Vivian's eyes. All this time. All these years. Adrian had been there. Not controlling her. Not restricting her. Just loving her. In the only way she'd let him. Detective, Rebecca said quietly, Adrian Montana is many things. Brilliant. Wealthy. Intense. But he's not a criminal. And he's certainly not violent. Everything he's done has been to protect the woman he loves, even from herself. The detective was quiet for a long moment, studying the screens full of evidence. I need to speak with my captain, she finally said. And with Ms. Kensington. She looked at Vivian. Thank you for pushing me to look deeper. She left the conference room. Vivian stood alone with Rebecca, staring at years of documentation. Years of Adrian's quiet, constant love. He's in holding, Rebecca said gently. The bail hearing is in the morning, but I can get you in to see him now. If you want. Did she want to see him? Vivian looked at the screens. At the evidence of everything he'd done. Everything he'd sacrificed. Yes, she whispered. Please. The holding cell area was cold and institutional. Rebecca led Vivian through secured doors and past uniformed officers to a private room, a small privilege afforded to wealthy defendants. Adrian sat on a metal bench, still in his rain-soaked clothes, his head in his hands. He looked up when the door opened, and the hope that flared in his eyes nearly destroyed her. Vivian. Her name was a prayer on his lips. Rebecca discreetly stepped out, closing the door behind her. They were alone. I'm sorry, Adrian said immediately. For all of it. For not telling you about Richard sooner. For the surveillance. For making you doubt. Stop, Vivian said softly. She crossed the small room and sat beside him on the bench. And then she took his hand. Adrian froze, staring at their interlocked fingers like he couldn't believe they were real. I saw the files, Vivian said. All of them. The escrow account. The GPS data proving Matt's was at the airport. The surveillance logs showing you've been protecting me for 2 years. I should have told you. Yes. You should have. She squeezed his hand. But I also understand why you didn't. Because if you had told me, I would have pushed you away. Told you I didn't need protecting. Tried to handle everything alone. You shouldn't have to handle everything alone. I know that now. Vivian turned to face him fully. Adrian, I've spent my entire life believing I had to earn love. That I had to be perfect, useful, grateful just to deserve basic kindness. The crosses taught me that. And when you loved me without conditions, without demands, I didn't know how to accept it. It scared me. So you left. So I left. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I convinced myself I was protecting you from my damage. But really, I was protecting myself from the possibility that you might leave first. Adrian's free hand came up to cup her face, his thumb wiping away her tears. I would never leave you. Never. I'm starting to believe that. Vivian, His voice broke. I'm not perfect. I'm controlling and obsessive, and I have a savior complex the size of Seattle. But everything I've done because the thought of you being hurt, of you suffering, is unbearable to me. I know. She leaned into his touch. But Adrian, I can't be someone you save. I need to be someone you stand beside. Your equal. Your partner. Not your project. You were never a project. His eyes burned with intensity. You were always the point, the reason, the everything. The air between them crackled with 2 years of longing. Charlotte's lying, Vivian said. The detective is going to figure that out. The fingerprints on the lamp, the GPS data, it's all going to prove you're innocent. I don't care about Charlotte. Adrian's hand tightened on hers. I only care about you. About us. About whether you can forgive me for being so terrified of losing you that I held on too tight. Vivian looked at this man, this brilliant, damaged, fiercely loving man who'd moved heaven and earth for her. I forgive you, she whispered. If you forgive me for not believing in us when it mattered. Always. The word was fierce. Always, Vivian. And then he kissed her. It was desperate and tender and tasted like rain and tears and 2 years of heartbreak finally finding resolution. Vivian melted into him, her hands fisting in his damp shirt, and for the first time in so long, she felt whole. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian pressed his forehead to hers. When I get out of here, he said, I have something I need to ask you. What? You'll see. His smile was devastating. But first, we need to deal with Charlotte. The detective is handling it. No. Adrian's expression hardened. Charlotte is dangerous. Unstable. And she's not going to stop until one of us is destroyed. I need to talk to her. Make her understand. Adrian, you can't go near her. That's exactly what she wants. I know. But I also know Charlotte. She was going to be my sister-in-law. I know what drives her, what she needs to hear. He looked at Vivian with fierce determination. Let me fix this. One last time. Let me protect you the way I should have protected Richard. Vivian saw the guilt in his eyes. The weight he'd been carrying for 2 years. Okay, she said. But not alone. We do this together. Together, he agreed. The door opened. Rebecca stepped in, her expression urgent. We have a problem, she said. Charlotte Kensington just checked herself out of the hospital against medical advice. And she's disappeared. What do you mean she's disappeared? Vivian stood, her hands still gripping Adrian's. Rebecca pulled up her phone, showing them a message from the detective. She discharged herself from Seattle General 30 minutes ago. Signed the AMA forms with her good hand, got into a car and vanished. The hospital security footage shows her leaving alone, but she was coherent. Determined. Adrian's jaw tightened. She's planning something. The detective has issued a bolo, be on the lookout, Rebecca continued. But Charlotte has resources. Family money. She could be anywhere. Vivian's mind raced. No. She wouldn't just run. Everything she's done has been calculated to destroy Adrian. She's not going to disappear without finishing what she started. Then where would she go? Rebecca asked. Adrian closed his eyes, thinking. The place that matters most. The place where all of this started. The mansion where Richard died? Vivian guessed. No. Adrian's eyes opened, filled with grim understanding. The cliff. Where Richard's car went over. Charlotte goes there every year on the anniversary of his death. It's her ritual. The anniversary is today? Vivian asked. Adrian nodded slowly. May 18th. 2 years ago today, Richard died. And Charlotte blames me for every second he's been gone. Rebecca checked her phone. It's 1:47 a.m. If she's going to the cliff. She's already on her way. Adrian stood, moving toward the door. I need to get out of here. Now. Adrian, you're still in custody, Rebecca said. The assault charges haven't been dropped. Then unarrest me or I'm walking out anyway. His voice carried absolute authority. Charlotte is going to that cliff, and if I'm not there to stop her, she's going to do something we can't take back. Rebecca looked at Vivian, then back at Adrian. If you leave before you're officially released, you'll be a fugitive. I don't care. Adrian, Vivian grabbed his arm. Think. If you run, it proves everything Charlotte said about you being obsessive and dangerous. You'll lose everything. I already lost my brother because I didn't act fast enough. I'm not losing anyone else. The raw pain in his voice cracked something open in Vivian's chest. She turned to Rebecca. What would it take to get him released right now? The DA would have to drop charges, which requires the detective to confirm Charlotte's story is unreliable, which requires evidence of her lying, Vivian finished. Which we have. The fingerprints. The GPS data. That should be enough for reasonable doubt. In the mornings. But at 2 in the morning? Rebecca shook her head. The system doesn't move that fast. Then make it move faster. Vivian's voice hardened. You're one of the best attorneys in Seattle. You have the evidence. Call the judge. Call whoever you need to call and get Adrian released in the next 20 minutes, or I'll go to that cliff myself. Rebecca's eyebrows rose. Then she smiled, sharp and predatory. I like her. So do I, Adrian said quietly, looking at Vivian with something that made her heart stutter. Rebecca was already dialing. Judge Morrison owes me a favor. Big one. And the DA's number 2 is my ex-girlfriend. Let me see what I can do. She stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, her voice taking on the commanding tone of someone who didn't accept no for an answer. Adrian turned to Vivian. You're not coming to the cliff. Yes, I am. Vivian. We're partners, remember? You said it yourself, you can't keep trying to protect me from everything. If Charlotte is dangerous, I deserve to be there. To face her. To end this. If something happens to you, then you'll be there to protect me. Like you've been doing for 2 years. She stepped closer, her voice softening. Adrian, I'm not the broken girl you fell in love with anymore. I'm stronger now. Partly because of you, partly because of everything I've survived. Trust that strength. He stared at her for a long moment. Then pulled her against him, his arms wrapping around her like he could shield her from the entire world. If we do this, he said into her hair, we do it smart. We bring backup. Security. The police. Agreed. And if at any point I tell you to run, I'll consider your suggestion and make my own decision, Vivian interrupted. Despite everything, Adrian laughed. A short, surprised sound. You're going to be the death of me. Or the making of you. He pulled back just enough to look at her face. You already are. The door opened. Rebecca stepped back in, her expression triumphant. Judge Morrison signed an emergency release order. The charges are suspended pending further investigation. You're free to go. She paused. But if you do anything that makes me regret calling in every favor I had, I will personally destroy you. Understood. Adrian was already moving. I need my phone. My car keys. And I need someone to call Matt's. Already done. He's meeting you at the parking garage with your vehicle and a security team. Rebecca handed him a bag. Your personal effects. And Vivian, she turned to her, if you're going with him, you need to know, Charlotte Kensington is not just grieving. According to the psychiatrist we finally reached, she's been diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder with psychotic features. She's dangerous when she feels abandoned or betrayed. Then we won't abandon her, Vivian said. We'll help her. Some people don't want to be helped. Everyone wants to be helped. They just don't always know how to accept it. Rebecca looked at her with something like respect. You two deserve each other. The drive to the cliff took 45 minutes through dark, rain-slicked roads. Adrian drove his Lamborghini like he was being chased by demons, while Vivian sat beside him, watching the city lights give way to forest darkness. Behind them, 2 black SUVs followed, Matt's and the security team, keeping pace. Tell me about Richard, Vivian said quietly. Not how he died. Who he was. Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, he was the good one. The one everyone loved. When our parents died in a plane crash, Richard was 23, barely an adult himself. But he stepped up, took over the family business, made sure I could go to college, build Montana Tech, chase my dreams. His voice roughened. He sacrificed everything for me. And when he needed me to save him, I failed. You didn't fail. You did everything you could. I was arrogant. I thought money could solve anything. I went to Victor Constantine and threatened him, threatened a man who'd killed people for less. I thought I was protecting Richard, but all I did was paint a target on his back. Charlotte doesn't know about Victor? No. And she can't ever know. Because if she finds out the truth, that Richard was murdered, not suicidal, she'll spend the rest of her life trying to get revenge on a ghost. Victor's dead. There's no one left to punish. Vivian absorbed this. Did you kill Victor? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally said. But I'm not sorry he's dead. The fire that killed him was ruled arson, but the Russian authorities never found who did it. Part of me wonders if it was one of his many enemies. Part of me doesn't care. He's gone, and the world is better for it. And Charlotte has been grieving someone who didn't kill himself. She's been grieving someone I couldn't save. Adrian's voice broke. And now she's so lost in that grief that she's trying to destroy the only family she has left. Me. They drove in silence for a few more minutes. Then Vivian saw it, a turnoff marked by a small memorial, flowers and photos, faded by weather. Adrian slowed, pulling onto the narrow road that led to the cliff overlook. The security SUVs followed. Tell me in the comments if you think Charlotte can be saved or if she's too far gone. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now, you won't believe what happens next. The overlook was a small clearing surrounded by trees, with a guard rail at the edge where the ground dropped away into darkness. During the day, it probably offered a beautiful view of the valley below. At night, it looked like the edge of the world. And standing at that edge, silhouetted against the faint pre-dawn light, was Charlotte. She wore the same cream blouse from the hotel, now wrinkled and stained. Her broken arm was in a sling. Her blonde hair whipped in the wind. She didn't turn when the Lamborghini's engine cut off. Adrian and Vivian climbed out slowly. The security team emerged from the SUVs, but Adrian held up a hand. Wait. Charlotte, he called. She finally turned. Even in the darkness, Vivian could see the tears streaming down her face. I knew you'd come, Charlotte said. Her voice was steady despite the tears. You always do what you think is right, even when it destroys people. Charlotte, please step away from the edge, Adrian said carefully, moving closer. But, so you can save me like you tried to save Richard. She laughed, a broken, terrible sound. We all know how that turned out. Richard's death wasn't your fault or mine. Yes, it was. Charlotte screamed. He came home that night devastated because of you. Because you told him he was weak. And I let him leave the next morning even though I knew he wasn't okay. We both killed him, Adrian. Vivian's heart clenched. This wasn't calculated manipulation anymore. This was raw, genuine grief. Charlotte, Vivian said softly, stepping forward. My name is Vivian. We haven't really met. Charlotte's tear-filled eyes focused on her. The orphan. The charity case. The woman who's supposed to make Adrian forget about Richard. No. I'm the woman who understands what it's like to lose people you love and blame yourself for it. Vivian moved closer, ignoring Adrian's warning hand on her arm. I lost my parents when I was 11. Car accident. And for years, I convinced myself it was my fault because I'd asked them to come pick me up from a sleepover. If I'd just stayed the night, they wouldn't have been on that road. They'd still be alive. Charlotte's expression flickered. But the truth is, Vivian continued, we don't control everything. We can't save everyone. And blaming ourselves doesn't bring them back. It just keeps us from living the lives they would have wanted for us. You don't understand, Charlotte whispered. Richard was everything to me. My future. My life. And Adrian took that away. No. Adrian's voice was firm but gentle. Richard's business troubles took that away. The choices he made before he met you took that away. I didn't help the situation, but I didn't cause it. You could have saved him. Charlotte's voice rose. You have all this money, all this power. You could have made Victor Constantine disappear. You could have protected Richard. The name hung in the air. Adrian froze. What did you say? Charlotte smiled through her tears, a terrible, knowing smile. Did you think I didn't know? I found Richard's journals after he died. Read everything. The threats. The money. Victor Constantine demanding Richard become his puppet. Her voice turned venomous. And you, his precious baby brother, promising to fix it and then failing spectacularly. Charlotte, Adrian's voice was careful, controlled. Victor was dangerous. If I'd acted differently, we might all be dead. But Richard is dead. Charlotte screamed. And you're not. You get to walk around, build your empire, fall in love, live your life, while Richard is rotting in the ground. So what's your plan? Vivian asked. Destroy Adrian's life? Send him to prison? Kill yourself? How does any of that honor Richard's memory? It doesn't. Charlotte's voice went cold and flat. But it makes the pain stop. And that's all I want anymore. For the pain to stop. She turned back to the edge. Charlotte, don't. Adrian started forward. Stop. Charlotte held up her good hand. If you come closer, I jump. Right here. Right now. Same place Richard went over. Adrian froze. Is that what you want? Vivian asked quietly. To die the same way Richard did? To put Adrian through that loss again? He deserves to lose someone he can't save. You're right, Vivian said. Adrian's head whipped toward her. Vivian. He does deserve that pain, Vivian continued, walking closer to Charlotte. Because he's been carrying the weight of Richard's death for 2 years, blaming himself, punishing himself. And now you're going to prove he was right to blame himself. You're going to confirm his worst fear, that he destroys everyone he loves. Charlotte's expression cracked. But here's the thing, Vivian said, now just a few feet from Charlotte. Richard didn't kill himself. The world seemed to stop. What? Charlotte breathed. His brakes were tampered with, Vivian said, her voice steady. Victor Constantine had him killed. It wasn't suicide. It was murder. How do you? Charlotte looked at Adrian. Is that true? Adrian's face was anguished. Yes. You knew. Charlotte's voice broke completely. You knew he was murdered and you let everyone think he killed himself? You let me spend 2 years believing I could have stopped him. Because if you knew the truth, Victor would have killed you too, Adrian said. And I couldn't lose both of you. I couldn't. So you lied to me. I protected you. I didn't want to be protected. Charlotte collapsed to her knees at the cliff's edge, sobbing. I wanted Richard. I wanted my life back. I wanted. Vivian dropped down beside her, carefully, and wrapped her arms around Charlotte's shaking shoulders. I know, she whispered. I know you did. And I'm so sorry you lost him. I'm so sorry you've been carrying this pain alone. Charlotte turned into Vivian's embrace and wept, deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like they were tearing her apart from the inside. Adrian knelt on Charlotte's other side, his own tears falling freely. I'm sorry. Charlotte, I'm so sorry. For lying. For not being able to save him. For being the one who survived when he didn't. I hate you, Charlotte sobbed. I hate you so much. I know. But I don't want you dead. Her voice was small, broken. I just want him back. So do I, Adrian whispered. Every single day. They stayed like that, the three of them kneeling at the edge of the cliff where Richard had died, grieving together in the pre-dawn darkness. Finally, Charlotte pulled back, wiping at her face with her good hand. I tried to destroy you. I filed false charges. I hurt myself to frame you. Her voice cracked. What's wrong with me? You're grieving, Vivian said gently. And grief makes us do things we never thought we were capable of. I need help, Charlotte whispered. Real help. Not just medication. I need. We'll get you help, Adrian said. The best doctors. The best treatment. Whatever you need. Why would you help me after what I've done? Because Richard loved you, Adrian said simply. And that makes you family. And I don't give up on family. Charlotte looked at him for a long moment. Then at Vivian. He really loves you, she said to Vivian. I could see it when I showed you those files. The way he talked about you. He's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. I know, Vivian said softly. Richard used to look at me like that. Charlotte's voice broke again. And I'll never have that again. You don't know that, Vivian said. You're 31 years old, Charlotte. You have a whole life ahead of you. And when you've healed, really healed, maybe you'll find that kind of love again. I don't want to heal. Healing means letting him go. No. Adrian's voice was firm. Healing means learning to carry him with you instead of letting him drown you. There's a difference. Charlotte was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, carefully, with Vivian's help. I need to turn myself in, she said. For the false charges. The assault claim. All of it. We'll figure that out together, Adrian said, standing too. But first, let's get you somewhere safe. Charlotte nodded, exhausted. She let Vivian guide her away from the cliff's edge, back toward the cars. Mats appeared with a blanket, draping it over Charlotte's shoulders. Ma'am, we have a car ready to take you to a private medical facility. With your permission. Charlotte looked at Adrian. Will you come with me? Just until I'm settled. Of course. And Vivian? Vivian glanced at Adrian, who nodded. I'll be there. The private psychiatric facility was in the mountains north of Seattle, a beautiful estate that looked more like a resort than a hospital. Charlotte was admitted just as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, her actual psychiatrist, whom they'd finally tracked down, met them there, her face lined with concern and relief. Charlotte, Dr. Mitchell said gently. I'm so glad you're safe. We've been worried. I'm sorry, Charlotte whispered. I stopped taking my medication. I thought I was thinking clearly, but... We'll work on it together, Dr. Mitchell promised. One day at a time. As they led Charlotte inside, she turned back to Adrian and Vivian one more time. I'm sorry, she said. For everything. And thank you. For not giving up on me. Never, Adrian said. Charlotte managed a small smile. Then she disappeared into the facility with Dr. Mitchell. Adrian and Vivian stood in the parking lot as the sun climbed higher, exhaustion crashing over them both. It's over, Vivian said. Almost. Adrian took her hand. There's still one more thing I need to do. What? He pulled out his phone and made a call. Detective Cora? It's Adrian Montana. Yes, I know what time it is. I need you to meet me at the Cross Estate in 2 hours. And bring the deed. There's something that needs to happen. He hung up and looked at Vivian. What are you planning? She asked. Justice, he said. The right way. For everyone. The Cross mansion looked smaller in daylight. Vivian stood on the front steps with Adrian, watching as police cars and legal vehicles filled the circular driveway. Detective Cora approached, looking exhausted but alert. Mr. Montana. Miss Ward. I trust you have a good reason for this. The best reason, Adrian said. The truth. They walked inside together. Dominic and Evelyn Cross sat in the living room, dressed in expensive suits despite their house arrest, their lawyers flanking them like guards. Giselle sat apart from them, her face drawn and tired. A stern woman named Patricia Vance, took position at the front of the room. This is highly irregular, Dominic's lawyer said. My clients have not agreed to any meeting. Your clients are facing 15 years in federal prison, Adrian interrupted. I suggest they listen. Patricia cleared her throat. Mr. Montana has brought new information to light regarding the Ward Trust Fund case. Information that changes the scope of the charges. Vivian's stomach nodded. Adrian, what did you do? He squeezed her hand. Then addressed the room. Dominic and Evelyn Cross embezzled $2.1 million from Vivian Ward's trust fund over 16 years. That's established fact. But what's not in the current charges is that they weren't the only ones who benefited. He pulled up documents on a tablet and projected them onto the television screen. Cascade Holdings, the company they funneled money into, was co-owned by 3 people, Dominic Cross, Robert Thorne, and, he paused, Viktor Konstantin. Gasps filled the room. Viktor Konstantin, the Russian oligarch who died 6 months ago in Moscow. The same Viktor Konstantin who forced my brother into criminal activities before having him murdered. Evelyn's face went white. We didn't know. You didn't know you were laundering money for a criminal organization? Adrian's voice was steel. Your financial records show transfers going back 8 years. You knew exactly who you were working with. Dominic stood, his face purple. This is absurd. We were innocent investors. You were accomplices to money laundering, racketeering, and fraud. Patricia's voice cut through the room, which carries significantly more prison time than embezzlement. Unless, Adrian said quietly, you cooperate fully. Return every penny stolen from Vivian. Testify about Viktor's operations, everything you know. Help federal investigators close down his remaining network. In exchange for what? Dominic's lawyer asked. Reduced charges. 5 years instead of 15. And Giselle, Adrian looked at Vivian's adoptive sister, walks free. She was a minor when most of this occurred. She didn't know about the trust fund or the money laundering. Giselle's head snapped up, tears streaming down her face. What? You're not your parents, Vivian said quietly, speaking directly to her sister for the first time. You were raised by them, influenced by them, but you don't have to be defined by them. Viv, Giselle's voice broke. I'm so sorry. For everything. For being cruel. For not standing up for you. I know. Vivian's chest ached. And I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free of the anger. The room was silent except for Giselle's quiet sobs. Patricia looked at the crosses. Do you accept Mr. Montana's terms? Dominic and Evelyn exchanged looks. All their arrogance, all their superiority, had crumbled away. They looked old. Defeated. Yes, Dominic said finally. We accept. Then we have a deal. Patricia nodded to Detective Cora. Take them into custody. We'll process the plea agreement by end of day. As officers led Dominic and Evelyn out in handcuffs, Vivian felt something release in her chest. Not quite peace, but close. Giselle approached her slowly, hesitantly. What will you do now? Vivian looked at Adrian, who smiled. Live, Vivian said. For the first time in my life, I'm going to actually live. 3 months later, Vivian stood in front of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, but this time, she wasn't in Adrian's penthouse. She was in her own apartment. Not lavish. Not enormous. But hers. Paid for with the first installment of her return trust fund, furnished with pieces she'd chosen herself, filled with light and possibility. You're sure about this? Adrian asked from the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee, hers with too much sugar, his black. About having my own place? Vivian took the offered cup and smiled. Yes. I need to know I can stand on my own before I stand with someone else. I understand. He moved to stand beside her at the window. But for the record, my place feels empty without you. You see me every day. Not the same as waking up next to you. Heat crept up her neck. They'd been taking things slowly, deliberately, carefully. Rebuilding trust. Learning to be partners instead of savior and saved. It was harder than the passionate whirlwind of their first relationship. It was also infinitely better. Charlotte's being released next week, Adrian said, changing the subject. Dr. Mitchell says she's made remarkable progress. That's wonderful. Vivian meant it. Over the past 3 months, she and Charlotte had exchanged letters, tentative at first, then increasingly honest. Charlotte was healing. Actually healing. She wants to meet with both of us. To apologize properly. We'll be there. Adrian set down his coffee and turned to face her fully. Vivian, there's something I need to ask you. Her heart skipped. Okay. Not here. He held out his hand. Come with me. Where? Trust me. She looked at his outstretched hand, this man who'd moved mountains for her, who'd learned to give her space even when every instinct told him to hold tighter, who'd proven that love could be both fierce and gentle. She took his hand. The Lamborghini roared through Seattle streets, But this time, Vivian knew where they were going. Back to the Cross mansion. Adrian, she started. Trust me, he repeated. When they pulled up to the circular driveway, Vivian's breath caught. The mansion was transformed. Fairy lights strung through the trees. Flowers, thousands of them, lining the walkway. And people. So many people. Vivian recognized faces as Adrian helped her from the car. Colleagues from her new job at a tech startup. Adrian had helped her get the interview, but she'd earned the position herself. Her former college roommate. Even a few distant relatives she hadn't seen since her parents' funeral. And there, standing near the fountain, Giselle. Her sister had enrolled in community college, started therapy, and was slowly, painfully rebuilding her life. She smiled at Vivian, tentative but genuine. What is this? Vivian asked Adrian. You'll see. He led her up the steps, through the crowd, to the very spot where 3 months ago, the Crosses had humiliated her. The place where everything had changed. Mats appeared, handing Adrian a microphone. Everyone, Adrian's voice rang out, amplified. Thank you for coming. I know this is unusual, but then again, nothing about my relationship with Vivian has ever been conventional. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Adrian turned to face Vivian fully, and the love in his eyes nearly knocked her over. 3 months ago, I stood in this exact spot and asked a question. Who told you she's alone? His voice softened. I was so angry that night. Furious at people who couldn't see what I saw. That Vivian Ward is extraordinary. Brilliant. Resilient. Deserving of every good thing this world has to offer. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. But I was also wrong, Adrian continued. Because I thought I needed to save you. To rescue you from people who didn't deserve you. And in trying to be your hero, I almost became another person who tried to control your life. He handed the microphone to Mats and took both of Vivian's hands. You taught me that love isn't about saving someone. It's about standing beside them while they save themselves. It's about being brave enough to be vulnerable, strong enough to give space, and humble enough to admit when you're wrong. Adrian, Vivian's voice broke. You've spent your whole life being told you should be grateful for scraps. That you should earn love through usefulness. But Vivian, his voice roughened with emotion, you don't have to earn anything. You're loved. Completely. Unconditionally. Not because of what you can do or who you can be. Just because you're you. Tears streamed down Vivian's face. And then Adrian knelt. The crowd gasped. From his pocket, he pulled out a ring. A stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds, the green stone catching the fairy lights like captured starlight. Vivian Ward, he said, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. I've made a lot of mistakes. Been too controlling. Too obsessive. Too afraid of losing you to trust what we have. But if you'll have me, if you'll take a chance on a man who's still learning how to love without holding too tight, I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of you. Drop a comment right now if you're crying. And if you're not subscribed yet, please hit that button. You've come this far. Don't miss out on more stories like this. I promise to respect your independence, Adrian continued. To listen when you need to be heard. To stand beside you, not in front of you. To love you not as a project or a possession, but as my partner. My equal. My everything. He held up the ring. Vivian Ward, will you marry me? The world seemed to hold its breath. Vivian looked at this man kneeling before her. This brilliant, damaged, fiercely loving man who'd fought for her when she couldn't fight for herself. Who'd learned to let go because she'd asked him to. Who'd proven that love could be transformative without being consuming. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes. The crowd erupted in cheers as Adrian stood, sliding the ring onto her finger. And then he kissed her, deep and tender and full of promise. While camera flashes lit up the night and people who'd once judged her now celebrated her joy. When they finally broke apart, both laughing through tears, Adrian pressed his forehead to hers. I love you, he said. So damn much. I love you too. Vivian cupped his face. Thank you for fighting for me. And thank you for learning when to stop fighting and start listening. Best education I ever got. Someone popped champagne. Music started playing, a string quartet Vivian hadn't even noticed. The crowd surged forward with congratulations, and Vivian found herself embraced by people who genuinely cared about her. Not because of who she'd been adopted by. Not because of who she was marrying. But because of who she was. Giselle approached, tears in her eyes. "Viv, I'm so happy for you." "Thank you for coming," Vivian said. "Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this." Giselle hesitated. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I was terrible to you for years. But I'm trying to be better. To do better." "I know." Vivian squeezed her sister's hand. "And I'm proud of you." Giselle's face crumpled. "I don't deserve that either." "Maybe not. But I'm giving it anyway. Because that's what family does, real family." They hugged, and Vivian felt another piece of her broken past click into place. Later, when the party had wound down and most guests had left, Vivian and Adrian stood by the fountain where the Lamborghini still waited. "You bought the mansion, didn't you?" Vivian asked. "That's why we could have the party here." Adrian smiled. "I did. Picked it up at auction last week. The Cross's assets were liquidated to pay restitution." "What are you going to do with it?" "I was thinking." He pulled her close. "We could turn it into something good. The foundation, maybe. For foster kids aging out of the system. Give them resources, education, support. Help them build lives that don't require them to earn love." Vivian's chest filled with so much emotion she thought she might burst. "That's perfect. You could run it. If you wanted. Your experience, your story, you'd be incredible at it." "Our foundation," Vivian corrected. "We run it together. Partners." "Partners," Adrian agreed. They stood there as the fairy lights twinkled and the fountain sang its endless song, two people who'd been broken finding wholeness in each other. "Can I tell you a secret?" Vivian asked. "Always." "That night 3 months ago, when you showed up in the Lamborghini, I was terrified. Not of the Crosses or their judgment, but of how much I still loved you. How much power you still had to hurt me. And now I'm terrified of how happy I am. Of how good this is. Of the possibility that maybe, just maybe, I actually deserve this." She looked up at him. "Help me believe that?" "Every single day." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "For the rest of our lives." The Lamborghini's doors rose like wings in the darkness. "Want to go home?" Adrian asked. Vivian looked at the mansion, the place where she'd been broken and rebuilt, humiliated and vindicated. The place that would soon help other lost kids find their way. "Yes," she said. "But first, drive fast. Like the night you came back for me." Adrian grinned, that devastating smile that still made her heart stutter. "As the lady wishes." They climbed into the Lamborghini, and as the engine roared to life, Vivian felt the last chains of her past fall away. She'd been an orphan twice over. She'd been used, discarded, broken. But she'd also been found. Made whole. Not by a billionaire in a Lamborghini, though that helped. But by her own strength. Her own choice to stop accepting less than she deserved. And now, with Adrian beside her and their future stretching out like an open road, Vivian Ward was finally, beautifully, completely free. The Lamborghini tore through the Seattle night, its engine singing a song of speed and possibility. And inside, two people who'd learned that love wasn't about saving or being saved. It was about choosing each other every single day and building something extraordinary together. Epilogue. 1 year later. The Ward Foundation for Youth Empowerment opened its doors on a bright Saturday morning. The mansion had been transformed, renovated into classrooms, counseling centers, and living spaces for teens transitioning out of foster care. The grand foyer where Vivian had once been humiliated now welcomed young people who needed someone to believe in them. Vivian stood at the entrance, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly, 5 months pregnant with a daughter they'd already named Hope. Adrian stood beside her, his arm around her waist, watching as the first group of kids explored their new temporary home. "Your parents would be proud," he said quietly. "So would Richard," Vivian replied. Charlotte approached, healthy and whole, working as a counselor for the foundation. She'd found purpose in helping others navigate grief and mental health struggles. The Thompson girl just asked if this is really free, Charlotte said, smiling. She couldn't believe there's no catch. No catch, Vivian confirmed. Just support. For as long as they need it. Charlotte squeezed her shoulder. You're changing lives, you know. Both of you. As she walked away, Adrian turned to Vivian. Any regrets? Vivian looked at the mansion full of hope, at the man she'd married 6 months ago in a small ceremony surrounded by people who actually loved them, at the future they were building together. Not a single one, she said. And she meant it. Her adoptive family had thrown her out. But her billionaire fiancé, now husband, had returned in a Lamborghini to propose publicly. And together, they'd built something far better than revenge. They'd built a future where love won. Where broken things could be made whole. Where every lost kid got a chance to find their way home. Thank you so much for watching Vivian and Adrian's story. If you loved this journey, please drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it the proposal? The confrontation with Charlotte? The moment Vivian chose to forgive? I love hearing from you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story of love, redemption, and triumph. More incredible stories are coming your way. Until next time, remember, you are worthy of love. You are stronger than you know. And your story isn't over, the best chapters might still be ahead. See you in the next one.